Broken shards are falling everywhere, with the face of an uncontrollable swordmaster, a man out of his mind. This is Count Perdium's useless oldest son, Ghislaine Perdium. On the battlefield, a man, or rather the finest knight of the north, cannot believe that he was defeated by that garbage human being. A hooded figure approaches the knight, mocking him, asking if the scenery is warm and cozy enough for him, as it took a long time to build the trap the knight just fell in. This hooded figure is a tall knight as well, holding a giant double-sided battle axe on its shoulder. With murderous intent in his visible eye, the knight asks his defeated opponent if he enjoys the trap he has built for him. Seeing him, the fallen one recognizes the man, saying he must be Ghislaine, and asks him if he already knew of his plans beforehand. While approaching the fallen knight, he says that this is not just the half of it. The man also knew how many of them were there, who the spies that infiltrated his ranks were, and who helped him with reinforcements. It seems he already knew everything from the start. Hearing this, the knight cannot believe what this guy says, while telling him that he's always been a hidden ace card. He then starts screaming, asking the man how he could do that. How could a useless piece of shit like him dare stand before him? Yet his speech is rudely interrupted, as the man is hit in the face by the boot of his enemy, making blood splatter all around. He then tosses the man back, telling him to shut it. He throws his helmet on the ground and tells the man that he can try and invade however many times he wants, as he is going to be the one who wins the war the next time, and the time after that, and as many times as it's needed. That is because he's already got all the plans for everything. An image of the war camp from a year ago is then shown, Luthania Kingdom, near the Perdium estate. A man wakes up in his bed, thinking what the hell has just happened. He then places his hand around his neck, asking himself if he is still alive. He grasps for air, and he cannot believe it, as just a minute ago, he was somewhere else completely. He was on a battlefield, fighting another knight, when his sword was struck out of his hand, leaving him defenseless. That is when his opponent carved him right through his chest, making him fall to the ground. The man who defeated him addressed him as the Mercenary King, and one of the continent's 7 strongest men. After killing Ghislaine, Idun, another one of the continent's top 7 noble knights, says that the war is over, while looking down on his fallen opponent. He asks him if he has any last words, and Ghislaine says that he has none, yet states that it was a shame he wasn't able to fulfill his revenge. Ghislaine then looks up at Idun and tells him to die, calling him a sickening bastard. Hearing this, Idun calls him arrogant. Even so, Idun didn't expect him to be the oldest son of the fallen Perdium household, and asks if Ghislaine didn't leave the family after his sister's death. After hearing this, Ghislaine asks Idun how he knows that, since he is from another kingdom. Idun tells Ghislaine that it's because he spent a lot of time working his ass off trying to track him down, because they were the ones who worked with the Delphine household in order to bring down his family. Hearing this, Ghislaine can only focus on the word we. He didn't know that there were other people behind that affair besides the House of Delphine. Idun then points his sword at Ghislaine, saying that anyway, there is no point in explaining it further since Ghislaine is going to be dead soon anyway, so he should just accept his fate. Hearing this, Ghislaine starts screaming from the top of his lungs, calling Idun a bastard, and saying that he will never forgive him. Hearing this, Idun says he is okay with that, and then proceeds to decapitate Ghislaine for good. That is the moment Ghislaine died, yet now he has returned, with his head still on his shoulders, looking at his reflection in a barrel of water. He asks himself if it wasn't perhaps a hallucination, since he also came back as his younger self. Looking around, Ghislaine wonders if he wasn't perhaps taken captive and used as a lab rat for the mages or something. He then looks around expecting to see Idun, calling him a bastard, and saying that he will regret keeping him alive. A voice from behind then disturbs him, calling him young master. This voice belongs to Ricardo, a soldier of the Perdium household, asking Ghislaine to come out, since he knows that he is awake. Much to Ricardo's surprise, within 1 second, Ghislaine has approached him from behind, placing his sword right at his neck and telling him to be quiet. Ghislaine has immobilized Ricardo and tells him that if he answers his questions, he will let him leave. Or maybe not. Seeing what's happening, Ricardo is unsure of what to say or do. He then huffs and asks Ghislaine if he doesn't think that this is crossing a line, leaving Ghislaine speechless. Ghislaine looks at Ricardo, wondering what is up with his reaction, as he is being threatened right now, and he proceeds to ask Ricardo what he is talking about. Ricardo then helps himself free and tells Ghislaine that he has tired himself out with his tantrum from earlier and fell asleep, but Ghislaine has no idea what he refers to. Clenching his neck, Ricardo asks Ghislaine if he's forgotten everything that's happened after taking a nap, and then reveals that he was throwing a tantrum about how he was going to command the group to raid the orcs. Hearing this, Ghislaine cannot believe it, even wondering what orcs this guy is talking about. Ghislaine wants to ask Ricardo what this nonsense he is saying, but he is cut short by Ricardo telling him to gather his stuff as people are waiting. Seeing this, Ghislaine asks Ricardo where they're going. As Ricardo passes Ghislaine by, carrying some bags and his sword, He tells Ghislaine that they're of course headed for the Perdium estate. Hearing this, Ghislaine drops a sweat and cannot believe what he has heard. He grabs Ricardo by the shoulder, telling him to say that once again, but Ricardo cannot understand what Ghislaine is going on about. Ghislaine then starts sweating and utters the name Perdium again, asking Ricardo if he refers to the fallen Perdium estate. Upon reaching the estate, Ghislaine looks at the castle and city from the top of a cliff. He cannot believe he can still see it standing, as he was sure he saw it reduced to ashes just then. Ricardo then approaches Ghislaine, asking him if he had a terrible nightmare or something, as calling his own household fallen could get him kicked out if it gets to the ears of the Count. Ghislaine then starts pitching his own cheek, saying that he might be dreaming or something. He pinches so hard his cheek snaps back in place, hurting Ghislaine, and he realizes that this is not a dream, and makes Ricardo believe he is crazy. With a young face and the estate in its original state, Ghislaine realizes what must have happened. He must have traveled back to the past. His story is then shown, how his younger self resented the household. The immaturity born from being inferior led to trouble, and as more time passed, more people from the household avoided him. He was unable to withstand the criticism and ran away from home. Several years after that, Ghislaine became a mercenary, surviving countless battles, building up his skill, and making a name for himself. He returned to the Perdium County in order to make up for his past mistakes, but his household had already been crushed to dust when he returned. This is how he had lost everything, but now, it's still here. All the people he holds dear are still here. Seeing this, Ghislaine says he cannot believe it, while putting on a big old smile, and even thinking about singing a song of joy. Even so, he says it's too early to rejoice. He looks at Ricardo, and remembers how he said they were here to raid the orcs. And Ghislaine says he cannot forget that day. This was the day on which most of the people in his raid squad would die. In his past life, he had followed the orc raid squad in an attempt to make a name for himself. At that time, the report said there were only 3 orcs. He thought that would be easy enough for someone like him, who had no experience commanding a squad. Yet when they got there were more than 20 orcs, and almost all of them died because Ghislaine was stubborn and wanted to command the squad. Now Ghislaine says it should be doable since those orcs didn't really have a strategy. The problem is, if those guys will trust him since they all think that he is some useless bastard. Suddenly a whole building flies above Ghislaine's head. It then crashes a few meters in front of him. A soldier panics and starts screaming, saying that it's the orcs. And indeed it looks like the orcs have attacked first. Seeing this, Ghislaine cannot believe it, asking if this isn't too soon, and wondering if they attacked this early in his past life as well. The orcs seem to be relentless, swinging left and right, killing everything in their path. A man then screams for everyone to get into formation. This man is the raid squad commander, Skovan, who tries to instill order among the soldiers, telling them not to panic and to get into a defense formation. While he says that, an orc's swings are throwing people left and right, yet he manages to parry its attack. Seeing this, Skovan realizes that they left their guard down and got ambushed when they were least prepared. He then realizes that there are more of them than it was reported, and says that at this rate, they are all going to die. A man then screams to get the commander's attention. He tells Skovan that there's an orc behind him, but it might be too late, as he is prepared to strike down Skovan in one blow. In the next second, however, someone gets close to Skovan, placing his hand on his shoulder. This is Ghislaine, who throws Skovan out of the orc's range of attack and prepares to strike him instead. Seeing this, Skovan cannot believe what he sees. Ghislaine then prepares to attack the orc with all his power. In one strike, he pierces the orc's hand. He then cuts it all together, leaving him with no weapon at his disposal. Seeing this, everyone remains shocked at what just happened. The orc falls to the ground, and Ghislaine stands unbothered with his sword prepared for another attack. Seeing what just happened, Ghislaine realizes he cannot use mana, and says that he wished he had returned to the past earlier. Ghislaine then turns his back on Skovan and asks him if he is the commander. He then places his hand forward and tells Skovan to give it there. Yet, Skovan doesn't really seem to understand what Ghislaine means. That is when Ghislaine clarifies, saying that he means for Skovan to give him the command rights. He tells Skovan that he wants to command this raid. Seeing this, Skovan cannot believe it, thinking that he already knew Ghislaine was an idiot. But to ask for commander rights when the lives of their soldiers are on the line is nuts. Skovan gets up and says that he cannot do that, leaving Ghislaine speechless. Skovan then asks Ghislaine if he thinks that this is some kind of game, and tells him that even if he is the young master, he cannot give up the authority that the Lord gave him that easily. Seeing this, Ghislaine calls the situation annoying, but acknowledges the fact that he would have reacted the same way if an idiot came up to him and asked for the right to command. Suddenly, another orc proceeds to attack them. Seeing this, Skovan tells Ghislaine to fall back and take care, as he is still too inexperienced to lead their troops, while he leaps forward to attack the orc. Hearing this, Ghislaine says that he has no other choice, then prepares his own sword to attack. He throws his sword with all his power, nearly hitting Skovan. Seeing this, Scoven turns around, picking Ghislaine up, asking him what the hell he thinks he is doing. All of a sudden, he hears a noise from behind. When he turns around, he cannot believe his eyes. The sword landed right between the orc's eyes, killing him in an instant. The orc falls to the ground, and Scoven and Ghislaine are left there to look at it. Scoven cannot believe what just happened, so he wonders how Ghislaine has managed to hit the weak spot. Ghislaine then addresses Scoven by his name and asks him if he knows what the most important thing in battle is, leaving him to wonder. He then tells Scoven that there is no hope in winning a battle when their troops are filled with fear. Then he tells Scoven that they need to gain momentum. Ghislaine then leaps forward and takes his sword out of the orc's head. Within seconds, he leaps into the air, prepared to strike down another monster, right in front of his troops this time. He falls right on the head of the orc, driving his sword through his skull, leaving every single soldier on the battlefield astounded. Scoven, in particular, looks stunned by this image. As he pulls his sword out of the orc's skull, Ghislaine tells the other orcs to come at him. He points his sword upwards and says that he will kill every single one of them. Then, all the orcs start charging at Ghislaine, and he also seems to be prepared to dive head forward in the crowd. In one swift motion, Ghislaine manages to cut all their hands, leaving them defenseless. Seeing the fight that takes place on the battlefield, Scoven wonders if he isn't dreaming. Even as a mana user, it's hard for him to do anything. So how is that skinny Ghislaine managing to do all that by himself? Scoven can tell that Ghislaine is already tired. Even so, he is using the smallest of movements to dodge attacks. And then he uses his swordsmanship to strike at their weak spot. He is doing all of this, like a manaless swordmaster. Or perhaps even something greater, Scoven thinks. While seeing the way Ghislaine is fighting, Ghislaine then starts screaming, asking the orcs if this is all they've got, as he's still not warmed up. As he runs away, he yells towards the orcs that they are not living up to their reputation as a warrior species. The soldiers, seeing this, are wondering if the young master is running away. They then shout at the commander, looking for guidance. Looking at the battlefield, Scoven asks, "What the fuck is Ghislaine thinking?" Running into the group of orcs and drawing their attention was good, but running away now may not be so good. Besides, it looks like Ghislaine is going right towards the edge of a cliff. That's when Scoven realizes something. He might be anticipating Ghislaine's tactic, after making the orcs follow him. Scoven then turns around and tells his man to raise a shield wall. He then tells the soldiers that they are going to follow the first son. As he fights the orcs, Ghislaine says that if Scoven is a skilled commander, he must have realized what his plans are by now. Although Ghislaine would prefer to slice all of them down himself, this shifty stamina of his won't be able to handle it. Even then, this should be enough for him to handle. Then, the orcs notice something from behind. Scoven and his men have planted their shields and spears forward and are approaching the orcs. This is when Ghislaine says that this is perfect. That is when Ghislaine leaps from the edge of the cliff. As he is falling down, he shouts for Scoven to do it now, and Scoven listens, shouting for everyone to move forward. They are going to throw all the orcs off the cliff. The soldiers have rushed forward with all their might, impaling and pushing on the orcs. Finally, they've done it. They have pushed them all off the cliff, and it looks like they have fallen towards certain death. Seeing this, Ricardo says that they've done it. They've managed to kill all of them, yet something remains. Scoven starts screaming for Ghislaine. While he looks down from the cliff, it looks like Ghislaine has managed to stop his fall by impaling his sword within the cliff's wall. Looking up, he sees Scoven and he smiles. Seeing this, Scoven cannot believe what he sees. He starts smiling and reaches down for Ghislaine, telling him to grab his hand. Yet, Ghislaine says that he cannot, and he lets go of the sword that was keeping him alive. He falls down, and the other soldiers remain speechless. They all scream his name, but it seems to be in vain. All of a sudden, a girl with light hair and a red dress addresses him as older brother Ghislaine. It looks like Ghislaine recognizes this girl, calling her Elena. Shards holding memories of Elena are falling into Ghislaine's hand, and he wonders what is going on. All of a sudden, someone pulls him by the shoulder, leaving him stunned. This is actually Elena, who tells Ghislaine that they should go together. Ghislaine then wakes up with an icy compress on his forehead. Looking at his hand, Ghislaine once again cannot believe that he is alive, and realizes that Scoven and the others have managed to save him. He places his hand on his forehead and asks if what he saw just now was a dream. Then, all of a sudden, he feels pain all over his body. He realizes that this must be the consequence of pushing his body to the limit, yet that should make it easier for him to know that he is still alive. Somebody then enters the room to check on Ghislaine, addressing him as Master. This is a maid with red hair undercut or something, who seems to be rather happy that Ghislaine is alive. Ghislaine recognizes this woman as Belinda. She places something on the table, asking Ghislaine if he realizes how worried she was about him, and asks him if she didn't tell Ghislaine that he should have left it to the soldiers to handle the orcs. Suddenly, Ghislaine leaps from his bed and hugs Belinda tightly. Seeing this, Belinda asks Ghislaine if she did something wrong, and Ghislaine replies by telling her that he is just happy to see her. It looks like Belinda is Ghislaine's personal tutor. Since he was little, she was the only one who continued to stay by his side despite his idiotic antics. But after the family fell to the ruins and she went missing, Ghislaine was no longer able to see her. That is why Ghislaine never thought he would see her again. While he hugs her, she asks him what he is so happy about, since they see each other every day. Ghislaine then realizes that he must tell Belinda the truth. He then grabs Belinda by the shoulders and tells her to listen carefully, then proceeds to tell her that a catastrophe will soon strike Perdium, and Belinda asks him what on earth he is saying. That is when Ghislaine tells her that he has died and comes back to life, but Belinda finds it amusing, saying that she is sure the orcs almost killed him. Ghislaine proceeds to tell Belinda that this is not what he meant, and Belinda asks him if he is aware that he, and not Perdium, are in great danger. Belinda then starts screaming and scolding Ghislaine, and he realizes that she doesn't believe him, and that this won't work at this time. Belinda then asks Ghislaine what he was going to do if he wasn't too hurt to go to the festival. Ghislaine then asks Belinda what festival she's talking about. Hearing this, Belinda asks Ghislaine if he's already forgotten about it, and then tells him that Lady Elena has been waiting for the day to go to the festival with him. She then tells him that it would be a great change for the two of them to become close to each other again. Ghislaine then takes a look at a picture, and remembers that there was a festival that always happened around that time of the year. In his past life, he didn't have time to enjoy festivals because of his traumatic experience. Ghislaine then asks Belinda how long it's going to be before the festival begins, and she says that it's going to happen in about a week. As a little girl enters the room, Ghislaine realizes that in a week, the day that changed his life will come, the memory that continues to haunt him even now. In 1 week, Elena, the one who just entered the room, will die. When he sees her sister, Ghislaine jumps and hugs her, leaving her stunned. Seeing this, even Belinda is left speechless. While hugging her brother, Elena asks Ghislaine what is up with him and what kind of prank this is. That's when Ghislaine tells his sister that he's really missed her. Elena throws Ghislaine towards Belina, who catches him, and tells his brother that he is creeping her out. Ghislaine, placing his hands over his chest, remarks the amazing strength Elena has, and wonders if she's always been this strong. Elena then brushes off her shoulder, and tells Ghislaine that she's only there because of Belinda, and then asks Ghislaine if he thinks that he can make everything okay with a hug, but Ghislaine doesn't know what she is talking about. Elena then reminds Ghislaine the awful things he has told her, how he yelled at Elena to piss off because she is annoying and that her breath feels disgusting, and once again Ghislaine cannot believe he has done that. He places his hand on his neck, apologizing to Elena, and thinking that he didn't have the closest relation with Elena in his past life, and acknowledging that he was a piece of shit. Seeing what happened, neither Belinda nor Elena can believe that Ghislaine has apologized first, with Elena even asking if he was hit in the head after fighting that orc. Ghislaine tells them that he did not, and asks why they all think that, when all of a sudden, something happens. A sharp pain strikes all over his body. Ghislaine falls to the ground and Elena starts mocking him, saying that there was no way he wouldn't have gotten them all in the state he is, and tells him that he has come back unconscious, and Ghislaine has nothing more to say. Belinda and Elena start laughing, while Ghislaine can only look up at them. He smiles as well, letting his head down, and says that everyone is just as he remembers them. Then, he wonders why his past self spent so much time on useless things. In the festival that comes next week, he rejected Elena's offer to go together, making an excuse that the events from the raid squad made him upset. That was the last time Ghislaine had seen her. Elena's body was then found shredded into pieces along with her bodyguards. That is when Ghislaine realizes that he should have been there to protect her. A knock on the door is then heard, as someone asks if they can come inside. These are Elena's bodyguards, Jamal and Philip, who are happy to see Elena, as they were looking all over for her. Seeing them, Elena asks if something has happened, as she has told them to wait outside, and the guards apologize and say that the servants asked her to oversee their work on the festival supplies. Hearing this, Ghislaine wonders why they would ask Elena. Belinda, seeing this, tells Ghislaine that he wouldn't know, because he is always lazing around all day. But there's such a shortage of workers in Perdium that even the young lady needs to work. As Elena leaves, she waves goodbye to Ghislaine and Belinda, and tells him to take care of himself, while Ghislaine wonders if they are really that short on workers. He didn't care about these things back then, so it's obvious that he wouldn't know. Before Elena leaves, Ghislaine places his hands inside his pockets and asks her if he could help. Hearing this, Elena turns around with a weird expression on her face. Once again, Belinda is stunned that Ghislaine has volunteered to help, and Elena wonders if he really got hit in the head. Next, we are at the festival, and it seems like tents have been set up with all sorts of things. Among the servants, screams can be heard, and people are looking really uneasy, as Ghislaine says that he wants to help. But Elena tells him to go away, as people will be too scared to work with him around. They seem to be fighting, with Elena pushing him away, and Ghislaine asking that this is the way she treats the people that want to help her. And Elena replies that the way Ghislaine can help them is to stay out of their way and out of trouble. As Elena pushes her palm further in Ghislaine's face, He thinks about the circumstances in which her body was found, near the slums, far away from the festival grounds. So that means that someone must have called her out there or forcibly moved her there. In order to prevent any of that, Ghislaine must first learn the ins and outs of the castle. All of a sudden, someone disturbs Ghislaine from behind. Looking away, it appears that Ghislaine recognizes the man. He is the old man, Fergus, who, out of breath, resting with his hands on his knees, tells Ghislaine how happy he is that he is well, thanking the gods. Fergus goes over to Ghislaine, placing his hands on his shoulders, and saying that as a lowly servant of his, he has made his way to Ghislaine as soon as he has heard of the news with the orcs. But Ghislaine wants to cut him short, saying that they can stop talking about that now. Seeing Fergus, Elena comes and tells him that this is great timing, as Ghislaine has been acting weird right after waking up, so Fergus should take him back to his room, which Fergus agrees to. But Ghislaine thinks that this hooligan cannot possibly imagine that he will be getting in his way. Seeing what just happened, Ghislaine concludes that at the moment, the situation cannot be helped, so he will do his best to find out what's going on around the castle in the following week. Ghislaine then tells Fergus that he knows of an abandoned training field in the castle, so he asks him to take him there, and Fergus asks what for. Ghislaine simply says that he wants to train, which stuns Fergus, and he says that he will show him the way. Getting to the place, Ghislaine seems to be surprised. For an abandoned training ground, the place is in much better condition than he would have thought. Ghislaine thinks that this is a perfectly suitable location for him to train at, and says that he's never seen anything like this as a mercenary. Then Fergus tells Ghislaine that they've maintained in the case that he would ever wish to use these facilities. Fergus then tells Ghislaine that he is certain that whatever Ghislaine is going through is just a phase. That is when Ghislaine realizes that this is what Fergus must have been doing in his past life as well, waiting for Ghislaine to return and use these places. Ghislaine lets his head down and thinks for a second, saying that this must have been what happened. He then goes on to friendly slap Fergus on the shoulder and tell him that he needs to live a long life as dying really feels like shit, which intrigues Fergus, as he says that Ghislaine is talking as if he'd already experienced life and death. Hearing this, Ghislaine says that Fergus is, as expected, really smart, and then proceeds to tell him that he really died and got resurrected. But Fergus tells him that this is enough tomfoolery, and doesn't believe him. Ghislaine then tells Fergus that he can go back to his business, as he will start training now, and Fergus bows, telling Ghislaine that he will be waiting outside. Looking at Fergus says that he has always been treating everyone like they were his enemies. In reality, it looks like he was just short-sighted. Then Ghislaine thinks about the time he has to prepare for the incident at the festival. Only 1 week. Back then, it was revealed that the one behind Elena's death was a lord from a neighboring territory. Thanks to that, Perdium got caught up in a war that led to its downfall. Ghislaine then says that Elena's death was essentially the starting point of their house's downfall. That means that he needs to set things straight from then on. He sits down and says that first thing first, he needs to build a better physique, and that it sucks he doesn't have a lot of time. Even so, he should at least be able to control mana. Mana is a supernatural resource that allows humans to break through their limits. Most people say that noticing and taking in the mana is the hardest part, but Ghislaine was able to do that even on the chaotic battlefield. He has to connect the mana particles floating in the air and bundle it up as if he's spinning a spool. For someone like him, who's experienced thousands and tens of thousands of battles, creating a mana core is a piece of cake. But if it was just that, he couldn't have been part of the strongest 7 of the land. With the method from that half-burned book on magic that he picked up, he can do so much more. Along with the natural mana core of humans, he can create a second and even a third mana core. This way, he can create a connected mesh of multiple cores. This is what will create an explosive force. Suddenly, as he does this, blood splatters through his nose. It seems like 3 cores are his limit right now, even if he was able to reach 5 in his past life. This method allows him to create an explosive force in a short time, but it also requires an extremely large amount of mana in return. This was the primary reason he lost to Idun in his past life. If Idun hadn't brought in a whole knight's order to fight against him when he had run out of mana, then he would have definitely won in a fair fight. Whipping off the blood from his mouth, Ghislaine says that this is an inherently unstable technique, but this is enough for now, as he now has a youthful body and a lot of time. Therefore, he will have Idun's head in no time. Even those bastards standing behind the House of Delphine, who helped destroy their country, will have no escape. Ghislaine will do everything in his power to destroy them all. 1 week later, on the day of the festival, the sky above the castle looks beautiful and full of stars. Ghislaine is strapping his sword around his body. He then goes to the festival. Seeing him there, Elena can't believe it. Elena asks him how he came, as he usually never comes to these sorts of things. And Ghislaine says that as a Perdium, he should at least come to festivals once in a while. Elena then tells her brother that he has been acting really odd recently, and that she has heard that he has been doing nothing but training in the past week. Ghislaine, annoyed, asks Elena what is wrong with the next in line of a night family training, and Elena looks up at him in a weird way, saying that Ghislaine never cared about these things before. She tells him that he was the one who said their dad was annoying, and that he wished he were the Lord already, and Ghislaine doesn't seem to take this comment well. Even so, Elena turns around, walking away from Ghislaine, and saying that she likes the way things are going now. Looking up at the sky, she tells Ghislaine that it seems like the old him is back. Hearing this, Ghislaine doesn't say anything and just looks towards Elena. Then he reverts his gaze, and thinks that he has realized something in the past week, because his actions have changed. His reception in the future are also slowly beginning to change, Ghislaine thinks, as Belinda instructs Elena's bodyguards to figure everything out themselves if Ghislaine creates any trouble, as they really can't afford to have any problems, especially with a lot of visitors, and they agree. Ghislaine then thinks that the general flow of things might be the same, but it would be too difficult to gauge the impact of his action on smaller events. Making good use of the information from the future is his job, so he needs to respond to each situation effectively. Then he says that his preparations are complete. Then it looks like Elena is taking Ghislaine and everyone around, and simply acts like a kid, as Ghislaine always keeps an eye out for danger. After the night is over, Elena says that this was fun, but tells her brother that it's getting a bit boring with it being the same every year, and asks if there's nothing new this year. Ghislaine, however, doesn't seem to care about this, and only acknowledges that the festival is almost over, and nothing has happened, and wonders if this could be because of his presence alongside Elena. Elena then asks Ghislaine if he would like to check out other areas as well, which piques his interest. A knight then tells Elena that, according to a friend of his, there are new events elsewhere, and Elena looks excited. She takes the knight's hand and tells him that this better be fun. This is when Ghislaine realizes that it must have been the two guards. They were the traitors of their house. Elena's escorts, Jamal and Philip, were the most trusted knights in the feud, because they had protected Elena ever since she was a child. In Ghislaine's past life, it was known that they were murdered while protecting Elena. Next, it seems that Jamal and Philip have taken Elena and Ghislaine to the next attraction, an empty square somewhere in the city, and Elena seems to be left speechless by this act. She asks her guards what this is, as there is nothing around, and asks Jamal if he is sure there will be a performance in such a dirty place, and he responds by telling Jamal that they are probably not prepared yet. He tells Elena that people should be there soon, but she gets annoyed, mocking Jamal, asking if he would ever want to perform in a place like this, while Ghislaine isn't saying anything. Even so, he thinks that this is just as he expected. This may seem like a simple deserted street at first sight, but appearances may deceive. If you look at the placements of the obstacles, they are specially placed to block the escape routes. Ghislaine thinks that they must have made preparations in advance, when all of a sudden, Elena pulls Ghislaine by his arm and prompts him to leave. Seeing this, Jamal asks if they shouldn't at least watch the show if they are already there, but Elena insists, saying that she's not going to watch a show in a place like that. Seeing the force with which Elena is pulling Ghislaine away, he asks her if she is working out or something, as he cannot understand why she is so strong. As they try to leave, Philip blocks her path and tells her to wait. With a scary expression on his face, he forces them to wait a little longer. Seeing this, Elena cannot understand why Philip is doing this. Elena gets scared, and tells Jamal and Philip that they are acting weird, and asks them what the matter is. Jamal then places his hand on his neck and tells Elena that he had no intention of scaring her. He then gets the same look as Philip, and tells Elena that this is all because a reasonable request came in. Hearing this, Elena wonders what is happening and what request they're talking about. A third person then seems to be approaching from the back, and Elena is surprised by this. He is a man wearing a long coat and hat, followed by two hooded figures. This man is Frank, who tells the two men that, as expected, their work process is clean. Jamal turns around to speak with the man and says that he has brought the young lady as Frank requested, so their deal ends there. Frank then sees Ghislaine, and tells the man that he didn't request that he be there as well. Seeing them, Elena starts shivering, hanging onto his brother's arm, but Ghislaine looks relentless, not a sweat on his face. Jamal says that he will just hand him over for free, as he followed them foolishly, not knowing that this would be his graveyard. Ghislaine then addresses Jamal, asking if he really thinks he will get away with selling them out. In return, Jamal tells him that he should be worrying about himself, as all they have to do is run as far away as possible. Jamal then tells Ghislaine that they were just getting sick and tired of this impoverished land, which has been tormented by the barbarians. Even so, he is sure that there are plenty of others leaving Perdium besides them anyway. Within the split second after Jamal finishes his sentence, it looks like Ghislaine has already cut him. Blood splatters from Jamal's mouth, and he doesn't understand what is going on. Seeing this, everyone remains stunned. As Jamal falls down in two distinct pieces, Ghislaine says that Jamal is right, but at least those people have never sold them out. He then turns his head towards Philip and asks him if he doesn't agree. That is when Philip grabs Elena as a hostage, and thinks that Jamal was an idiot for losing to an amateur like Ghislaine. Then he gets the grand prize of a sword through the forehead. As he falls to the ground, he renders what just transpired impossible. Philip sits dead on the ground, and Elena hugs Ghislaine. Seeing what just happened, the two hooded figures that came along with Frank asked him if he is sure that is the eldest son of Perdium, as they thought he had never had any real combat experience or fundamental training. Frank says that judging by his appearance, he is not mistaken. Even so, he wonders how he could have killed two knights when he was also taken by surprise. More so, with attacks that used mana at that. Elena looks up at Ghislaine and asks him what is happening right now. Ghislaine doesn't say a word and thinks about what he should do. He then hits Elena behind the neck. He renders her unconscious and carefully lets her down on the ground, telling her to take a little nap. From behind, Frank addresses Ghislaine, thanking him that he has done the dirty work for them. Frank approaches and tells him that he is much different than he has heard, and says that they were planning on taking care of those two themselves. As Frank takes a puff from a pipe, he asks Ghislaine if he has been hiding his skills. Ghislaine pulls out his sword from Philip's head and asks Frank why he cares about that. He then looks over and thinks that there are three of them. He concludes that the two beside him are nothing, but the one in the middle exudes the amount of mana on a different level. Ghislaine also recharges his mana and says that he has to end this quickly. Ghislaine asks Frank whose request this was, but he says that there is no need for the dead man to know this. Hearing this, Ghislaine says that he knew Frank wouldn't give the information so easily, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. He then prepares his sword and tells Frank that he will want to spill it out soon enough anyway. Seeing this, one of the acolytes behind Frank asks if they should sever his head, but Frank says they should not. Instead, they will capture Ghislaine alive and break every limb in his body until he can't help it but go mad. He looks at Ghislaine over his glasses and says that he must writhing in pain for the shape to come out beautifully. The servants respect the order and proceed to attack Ghislaine. Ghislaine takes something in his hand and prepares to use it on the men. He throws the object towards the men. It looks like a firecracker, and they don't understand why Ghislaine would throw this at them. The firecracker, it seems, had only one purpose: to distract the men's attention, as in the next second, both his head and the firecracker were cut. Ghislaine has struck the men from underneath, right through the firecracker and his forehead. Seeing this, the other acolyte calls it a shallow trick. He tries to strike Ghislaine from the back, but he uses his sword to block the attack. Ghislaine notices something and reverts his gaze. He wraps his arm around the man's blade, blocking it there. Then he takes the blade from his opponent's hand and prepares to strike him. With one single cut, he takes his head clean off. However, the fight is not over, as Ghislaine notices something. It seems like Frank went for an attack behind his back. Once again, Ghislaine manages to parry his attack. Seeing this, Frank cannot believe that Ghislaine has managed to block his attack from that position, as it was a perfect sneak attack too. With two swords now in his hands, he goes for a counterattack on Frank, but he notices and jumps away. Even so, it looks like Ghislaine's attack hit, not at its full force, but it sure did some damage to Frank. His pipe, now broken, lies on the floor. Once again, Frank goes for another attack on Ghislaine. Ghislaine uses both of his swords to block this attack. Seeing how good Ghislaine is, Frank says that he is surprised, as if he would have been lacking in mana, he would have been beheaded by Ghislaine's attack. Ghislaine also thinks about what just happened, wondering how the guy survived a strike to the neck, and concluding that he must have focused his mana around his neck to reduce the damage. As Frank prepares his next attack, he tells Ghislaine that he doesn't know how he managed to learn such strange swordsmanship at that age, but it doesn't matter. This is the place where he will perish either way. He attacks Ghislaine again and tells him that there is no way he will defeat him with such feeble mana. Then, he screams that Ghislaine will die here. Yet, something might not be right, as Ghislaine smiles upon hearing this. Seeing this, Frank wonders why he'd do that. That is when Ghislaine plants both his swords firmly on the ground and prepares for a different kind of attack. He uses the force from swinging his own weight in the air to hit Frank on the face with his foot. This takes him by surprise and throws him several meters behind. With one broken lens, Frank fixes his hat and once again tells Ghislaine that attacks like that won't work on him with this little mana. But it looks like he has made a mistake, as blood starts pouring from his mouth. He falls to one knee and starts coughing and vomiting blood. Looking at his hand full of blood and shivering, Frank wonders what happened just now, as Ghislaine shouldn't have been able to pierce through his enhancement with his skill level, but his power in that attack seemed different. As he approaches Frank, he tells him that he has never expected there to be a true culprit behind Elena's death. Then he tells Frank that it must have been him, as he menacingly approaches with all his 3 cores active. He tells Frank to prepare, and then unleashes his 3rd core. Seeing this, Frank asks Ghislaine how he has managed to boost his mana so greatly, but Ghislaine doesn't seem to care about his questions, and just goes for his neck. Frank acknowledges Ghislaine's speed and prepares for his attack. They fight, with Frank managing to block Ghislaine's attacks. But this might not last long, as Ghislaine seems relentless in his attacks. Frank even says that his hands are getting numb only from blocking his attacks, which should be impossible. With his sword almost shattering and chipping away, Frank says that no matter how much mana one draws, it usually has a limited effect. That being said, Frank says that he has never heard of a method that increases mana so explosively like this. Looking at Ghislaine, he looks like he has become a completely different person. It looks like with his next strike, Ghislaine has managed to completely break Frank's sword. Not just that, but he's also cut him down his chest. With the amount of blood coming out, it seems like the mana might not have been enough this time. Even so, Ghislaine goes for one more attack. He uses the tip of his sword to pierce Frank right through his chest. With this, his pain reaches critical heights, making him scream and cough up even more blood. Ghislaine then punches his chin, making him close his mouth. He pushes Frank with his back against a wall, and says that they will now finish their conversation from earlier. With his sword driven deep within his guts, Ghislaine once again asks Frank who sent him over to do such a thing. Even in this situation though, Frank says that he won't be going down so easily, and he pulls out a knife from underneath his sleeve. He looks over to Elena and says that he will at least be taking the young lady of Perdium with him. He prepares to throw the knife, as he wishes death to Elena. Yet even this plan of his won't have any effect. It seems like Ghislaine has anticipated the possibility of this kind of attack, and blocked Frank's hand with some kind of threads, and Ghislaine tells him that they should make a deal. If Frank doesn't try anything useless and answers his question, Ghislaine will sheath his sword. Looking down at Ghislaine's hand, Frank realizes that these are threads created with mana, stating that he cannot move because of them, and wonders when he made such things. It turns out that he did that right at the beginning of their combat, when he was also gathering mana. Clenching his sword harder, Ghislaine says that he is sure that someone of Frank's caliber would know how to patch themselves up, unless he destroys his mana core, in which case it wouldn't even matter anymore. Hearing this, Frank is left speechless, unsure of what to say. That is when Ghislaine drives his sword deeper, making Frank feel a sharp pain. Looking down, he cannot believe it. His mana is scattering, and his core shattering. Seeing that Ghislaine is ruthless, he asks him if he is out of his mind, as one wrong move could make the backflow of the mana to create an explosion and blow up the whole area, and asks Ghislaine if he is planning to self-destruct. Even at this point, Ghislaine seems to be unhinged, saying that the scenario Frank proposed could only happen with someone unskilled, but he can manage it. Looking at Ghislaine and sweating profusely, Frank realizes that Ghislaine is not bluffing. Seeing death in Ghislaine's eyes, he realizes that he must do as he says, if he is done for. This is the moment Frank breaks and shouts that the one who put him up to this was Count Desmond. He tells Ghislaine that he is the one who has requested this because he needed a pretext to start a war against the Perdium and Degard families. Hearing this, Ghislaine asks if that is so, and thinks that Frank would not be lying in this situation. In his previous life, such underground work was left for the families allied with the ducal house, and wonders how would Duke Delphine even dare to orchestrate this nonsense behind their backs. Ghislaine then pushes Frank against the wall, and asks if this was the reason for which he wanted to murder Elena, and he tells Ghislaine that he is correct. Then Ghislaine drives his sword all the way through his guys, while raising them up in the air. Frank asks him what he is doing, as this is different from what he has promised earlier. Hearing this, Ghislaine asks him what the matter is, as Frank must have killed plenty in his time, so he shouldn't be scared when his time comes. After hearing this, it seems like Frank is the one who starts laughing, and this Ghislaine is the one left to wonder why. Frank tells Ghislaine that it wouldn't matter if he kills him anyway, as he has already managed to finish the work with the Degard, and asks Ghislaine if he thinks that people will listen to a punk like him. Ghislaine grabs Frank by the face, while Frank tells him that Perdium will perish due to war. Yet it looks like Ghislaine doesn't agree, and tells Frank that he is about to let him onto something. He lets him in on the secret that he was reborn after dying, so it will be different this time. He then drives his sword into Frank's mana core, making his body shatter altogether. At the same time, a firework lights the sky. As Frank's blood splatters all over the floor and walls, so does the firework's brilliant burst, painting the night with streaks of purple and silver, a grotesque mirror of the chaos unfolding below. The two traitors and acolytes are also sitting dead on the pavement. Ghislaine then turns his head around. He sees Elena still sleeping on the concrete. He throws his sword away and huffs in relief, the tension finally draining from his body like air from a punctured lung. Suddenly, though, something happens. He falls to the ground and starts coughing up blood himself. It appears that this is because of his last attack, as exploding 3 cores wasn't an issue at all back when he was the Mercenary King, but now it seems to take a toll on him. That is when Ghislaine says that he won't fall like this, and so he is approaching a house. He hits the door so hard it flies away, and finds 2 corpses on the floor. In his previous life, they found another body besides Elena's at this place, and according to what the guy said earlier, it can only be one person. That is the son of Degard. Ghislaine goes over to take a look and says that it seems like he was killed along with his escorting knights. So this is how they silenced them and framed them as Elena's killers. The moment this is revealed, the war will break out. Therefore, Ghislaine must erase the evidence. So he pulls out another firecracker. He starts a fire to burn down the house, and as he carries Elena away, says that he won't let things happen as he intended them to. But it looks like he is not alone, as someone also watches him from afar. As he leaves though, the hooded figure does too, leaving no trace behind. At some kind of council gathering, the figure informs its superiors that the mission was a failure, and the higher-ups cannot understand how this could happen, asking the hooded figure if they couldn't take care of just one girl, especially since they've sent Frank, who was their best. Bowed down to one knee, the hooded figure prepares to say something. He tells the council that it was all because of Ghislaine Perdium. Hearing this, the council members find it hard to believe, calling him the bastard of the North. One of them even says that the hooded figure is only using him as an excuse, as he calls Ghislaine a useless piece of shit. To this, the hooded figure replies that Ghislaine was completely different from the information they've had. Recalling the events the hooded figure has witnessed, he can say for sure that it was like Ghislaine was a completely different person. Even so, the figure says that they've already taken care of things with Degard, so it won't be an issue to start the territorial war, so he asks his superiors for one more chance. Upon hearing this, the members of the council shut him up, saying that he wasn't even capable of finding enough information about the kid, and ask him if he realizes how much of a setback this is. All of this being said, his fate is sealed. Elimination. All of a sudden, another person speaks, calling everyone else noisy, while sitting on a throne, with a stained glass window behind him that bears the mark of a crescent moon. The man goes on, asking the hooded figure what kind of chance it wants. The hooded figure states that he will get rid of Ghislaine Perdium, and the man on the throne asks how. The hooded figure then reveals that he will make a duel happen naturally, and that there is someone he has in mind. Hearing this, the council gets interested, and they ask who that is. The hooded figure reveals that he talks about Cain Logis, someone famous for their strength-based swordsmanship. Despite his young age, he's the epitome of strength, so the spy can confidently tell that there is no one in the north who is a match for his strength. Besides, Cain is Ghislaine's cousin, so he is sure it won't be forced to have them meet. Upon hearing this, the council remains silent. The men on the throne also stay silent for a couple of seconds. He then replies, telling the figure that if it fails, there will be no next time for him, and that is when the hooded figure shouts that he won't disappoint him again. Next, it seems we are back at the Perdium training castle. On the training grounds, Fergus seems to have come to inform Ghislaine of something, but he doesn't get to finish his sentence. Ghislaine uses his mana strings to grab his sword, leaving Fergus astounded. He makes the sword fly through the room towards him, while Fergus is simply left to watch the whole event. He catches the sword and prepares to swing again. As he spins the sword around, Ghislaine says that this should do. That is when he looks over and notices Fergus. He greets him, and Sir Fergus bows, saying that Ghislaine was so focused on his training that he didn't want to disturb him. Fergus then asks Ghislaine how he managed to do what he just did, grabbing the sword. Ghislaine then uses the sword as a yo-yo to ask Fergus if this is what he's referring to. Ghislaine then tells Fergus that he is using mana threads, which use mana like strings. Ghislaine thinks that in his past life, he's been using it all the time, but at his current skill level, he needs to implode his core in order to use it like he used to, because he is lacking mana. Even so, if he only makes one thread to use less mana, he can still use it despite having less mana. Seeing this, Fergus says that he thought he had been training his mana for a long time, yet he's never seen something like this before. Fergus then thinks that just a while ago, Ghislaine didn't even train, let alone use mana, so he wonders how he was able to come up with the idea of using mana like this. After this, Ghislaine interrupts Fergus's thinking, asking him if he needed something, and Fergus also remembers what he came in for. He informs Ghislaine that he just wanted to come by to inform him of something, and Ghislaine asks what's up. That is when Fergus bows before Ghislaine and thanks him for protecting Elena. Hearing this, Ghislaine asks him why he is doing that, as this is just something he should have done either way. Even so, Fergus sends the conversation and invites Ghislaine to eat. A few days after that, the festival was paused, and it only made sense since a guard knight tried to traffic the young lady. At the table, Elena is upset because everyone says she is lying when she tells them that Ghislaine was the one to save her. Elena tells his brother that he should do something about it, but Ghislaine doesn't want to bother, saying that they won't believe them anyway. Belinda also gets mad, saying that it was Jamal and Philip trying to take Elena for themselves, saying that she knew they were perverse, but Elena tries to make her stop. Looking over the table, Ghislaine smiles, happy that Elena lives. He was able to stop the war from happening, but he is sure they won't give up so easily. Ghislaine says that he won't be able to stop them on his own forever, so he needs to grow a military force. A maid then comes in, excusing herself, and bringing the food. As the maid places the food in front of Ghislaine, He says that in order to achieve his goal, he must get more into politics. Ghislaine lifts the cover that was put over the plate, and he's greeted with only one piece of bread. Looking at the plate, he cannot understand. Ghislaine asks Belinda why they're getting the dessert first, but Belinda says this is no dessert, and that Ghislaine knows the situation they're in. From an open window behind Ghislaine, a scream is heard. A fat man screams for Ghislaine or the Lord to compensate for the damages they have caused with the cancellation of the festival. In fact, a whole crowd is gathered at the entrance gate, protesting about compensation. One of the commoners shouts at the guard behind the gate to come out, saying that they are swimming in money inside there, while the guard tries to calm them down. Looking out the window, Ghislaine wonders what the hell is going on. Belinda, staying next to Ghislaine, says that she knew they would do this, but Ghislaine doesn't know what she's talking about. Belinda asks Ghislaine if he is aware of the fact that their county is full of merchants who make a living from the profits that come from the festival, saying that it was good enough for them last year. But since the festival was cancelled after just one day, it makes sense that they're upset. Hearing this, Ghislaine cannot believe it, asking if the county's situation is really that bad. He thinks that this isn't good at all, and that they'll only get more aggressive if he doesn't do anything about them. Ghislaine turns to Fergus, asking him what the soldiers are doing, and telling him to instruct them to go down and calm that crowd down. That is when Sir Fergus tells Ghislaine that they don't have any soldiers, leaving Ghislaine to wonder how this is possible. Old man Fergus tells him that most of them have been dispatched to the Forest of Monsters post for reconstructions because of the orcs raid, which Ghislaine cannot believe. Ghislaine then thinks about the layout of the land and how Perdium is basically eternally at war because of the barbarians to the north, and on the other side, there's the Forest of Monsters from where monsters can come and attack at any moment. No money, no soldiers. Ghislaine thinks that everything is a mess. Ghislaine then takes Belinda to the corner of the room in order to tell her something, which makes Elena wonder what they are talking about. Ghislaine says that Belinda is the one managing his money, and that they should use that money to calm the crowd. That is when Belinda tells Ghislaine that there isn't any. Ghislaine asks why that is, and Belinda asks if he has perhaps forgotten that the Count cut off his allowance because of the way Ghislaine was spending money like water. That is when Ghislaine realizes that he has no money at all, and that he is completely broke. He then tries borrowing some money from Belinda, but she doesn't have any either. Looking over the window, Ghislaine starts counting the things he doesn't have. No money, no soldiers, no food. So what do they have? Without even the least amount of money, there's nothing he can do, even if he has knowledge about the future, so he is going to need money first. He wonders if there might be something on the estate that he could sell, as someone is running towards his quarters in the hallway. The man opens the door to his room in a rush, and Ghislaine turns his gaze over to him. This is Ricardo, and Ghislaine asks him why he is in such a hurry. Ricardo tells Ghislaine that there is a problem, and that the young Master Kane wants to see him. Hearing this name, Ghislaine cannot believe he is there. Outside, a guard huffs, with blood all over his face. Then, all of a sudden, he wakes up with a fist in his mouth. He is continuously beaten up by someone. As Ghislaine enters the room, the soldiers are down all over the floor. The beaten guard calls for Ghislaine, addressing him as a young master. Ghislaine looks down with a scary expression on his face. Someone grabs his attention by saying that Ghislaine has finally come. This is Kane, who looks to be at least 1 meter taller than Ghislaine. Bro is a brute for sure. After beating the shit out of all his guards, Kane goes on to salute Ghislaine. Ghislaine looks up and thinks. Seeing Kane, he says that he remembers that face, the heir of the Loges County, with whom they have an alliance. Kane Loges. At the time, it seemed like he was Ghislaine's only friend, and at the same time, he was his enemy. Kane gets down from the stairs, cheerfully heading towards Ghislaine. As he approaches, Ghislaine asks Ricardo what the situation is. Ricardo says that they have responded to a report of a disturbance at the tavern. There, they have found Kane with his escort knights. Recognizing them, Kane asks them if the rumors about the young Master Ghislaine were true. That is when Commander Scoven explained the details of the rumors to him. That is when Kane picked up Scoven by his chin. Looking right into his eyes, Kane asks Scoven if he dares lie a Loges in his face. So that is when it happened, Ricardo says. Kane interrupts him, saying that if he is going to tell Ghislaine, he should tell him the truth. Kane then reveals that Sloven told him that he, who has never trained, took down an orc with his bare hands and dealt with the traitorous escort knights himself. This is why Kane gave him a little wake-up call in order to knock some sense into him. He then stares Ghislaine down, telling him that this wouldn't have happened in the first place if Ghislaine wouldn't have lied. Hearing this, Ghislaine looks up, without muttering a single word. He thinks that Kane was this kind of man, always treating Ghislaine as his subordinate. Every time he visited Perdium, he always made a mess. Even after causing all that trouble, no one could say anything because he was basically his subordinate. That is why no one looked down upon Kane. Unlike he, who has always had an inferiority complex, Kane's confidence and bold demeanor were praised as qualities befitting of an heir. Ghislaine smiles and thinks that this is why he was criticized more. Kane looks over at Ghislaine and thinks, usually, Ghislaine would have charged at him with this much provocation, but not this time. A while ago in Logues County, it seems like an interesting conversation took place. Someone has proposed that Kane kill Ghislaine. This was the spy who was before the council, who now tells Kane that if he succeeds in this task, the esteemed one will support the Loge family. Hearing what the spy had to say, Kane says that it's not a hard task dealing with someone like him, but Ghislaine is also an heir to this land, so he asks how he is supposed to eliminate him. The spy tells Kane that they could lure Ghislaine into a duel, making it appear as if an unfortunate accident occurred, and it will simply seem like a trivial dispute between heirs. The spy then says that he will accompany Kane disguised as an escort knight, orchestrating the situation, so there is no need for concern. He then tells Kane that this is an uncommon opportunity even for him. Kane turns around and thinks he couldn't believe that he would have to kill his own cousin, Ghislaine. He clenches his hands together and says that they should go right away. Kane looks at the spy behind him and wonders if they want to eliminate him because something about him has changed. Thinking about it, Kane smiles and says that in that case, he might as well put it to the test. Kane asks Ghislaine what he is doing, but Ghislaine doesn't understand what he is referring to. Kane asks Ghislaine why he is still standing there, as since he is there, Ghislaine should bring him the thing that has been prepared for him. But once again, Ghislaine has no idea what Kane is talking about. Kane goes on to say that he has heard that the festival has been interrupted, so they should live up the mood and have an amazing time, since they've always been in sync when it came to things like that. Looking right into Ghislaine's soul, he asks if he is wrong. Hearing this, Ghislaine thinks for a second. Then he realizes what Kane was talking about, asking if he means that. Ghislaine then remembers that Kane made him prepare alcohol and women every time he came there. He granted this request back then because he didn't want to get beaten up, but he's not going to do that no more. Because of him, he had to waste all of his precious money. He then remembers what Belinda told him about the Count cutting him off. That is when Ghislaine realizes something. He looks at Kane and says that it was always right in front of his eyes. Kane is his source of income. Then Kane once again shouts at Ghislaine. He tells him that if he remembers then, he should better bring them right then, asking if he cannot see him waiting. Ghislaine says that he will bring them right along, but first, there is something they have to discuss. He looks down on Kane, asking him if he didn't have a debt to repay him. Seeing this, the spy is not sure of what is about to happen. Kane asks Ghislaine what debt he is talking about, while putting on a mad look on his face. Ghislaine asks Kane if he realizes that he has been handling everything he's asked him to prepare with his own money, so now he must ask for it. Ghislaine then tells him that he will settle for 1,000 gold principal, plus interest. Upon hearing that, Kane says that 1,000 gold is crazy, and that all that shouldn't have even cost Ghislaine 100 gold. Besides, Kane says, Ghislaine did all that to thank him for being his friend, so it's like a friendship fee. Ghislaine confronts Kane, saying that it's been a friendship his ass, as Ghislaine has been Kane's doormat for the longest time, and Kane seems annoyed by the comment. That is when Ghislaine tells Kane to pay it ASAP before he beats the hell out of him, as he needs a lot of money at the moment. Hearing what Ghislaine has just said, no one can believe it. Ricardo even thinks that Ghislaine must have gone crazy. Then Kane gets up from the ground. He looks Ghislaine down and says that he is acting all bold just because he has been going easy on him. He gets in his face and tells Ghislaine that it seems like he believes he's actually gotten stronger just because he has spread a bunch of false rumors saying he won against a knight. Kane tells Ghislaine that is nothing but a parasite leeching off this land. He prepares his punch and says that this is why everyone in the north calls him a scoundrel when all he, the supposed heir, does is spout empty nonsense. He goes to punch Ghislaine, telling him to get himself together. Ghislaine remains unhinged and doesn't say anything. He then easily dodges Kane's attack. Seeing this, neither Ricardo nor the spy can believe it. Once again, Kane wants to punch Ghislaine, but he dodges and gets closer to Kane. He then punches Kane in his chest. Seeing Kane's expression, it looks like he wasn't expecting this amount of force. Ghislaine then goes in for another punch. This time though, it seems like Kane has easily blocked his attack. Seeing this, Ghislaine seems surprised. That is when Kane falls to the ground, spitting up blood and screaming in pain. The spy goes in to check on Kane, asking him if he is okay. Ghislaine tells Kane to get up and stop whining, as he knows Kane blocked that attack. That is when the spy shouts at Ghislaine, telling him to shut up and asking him what the hell he thinks he is doing. Everyone in the pub cannot believe what they are seeing, asking themselves if Ghislaine just beat up Kane. Ghislaine looks over at the people in the pub and realizes what is going on. Seeing this, he smiles and thinks that if this is how Kane wants to play, he will play along. It looks like Kane even turned to the spy, asking him how he likes his acting. The spy says that it was excellent, as Kane has set the stage perfectly to make it appear that the fault lies with Ghislaine in everybody's eyes, and that this should be more than enough to justify a duel. Kane prepares to take off his coat, and thinks that it's a rare opportunity to gain such powerful backing, so he must make sure to leave a lasting impression this time. He remembers what he discussed with the spy in his office. Kane prepares to throw his glove, saying that this is the perfect time to cut off Perdium, a falling power. Kane goes on to scream, making a scene as he holds up the glove, and asking Ghislaine how he dares after trashing the dignity of nobility with lies, also attacking him simply for trying to verify the truth. He wants to challenge Ghislaine to a duel, but all of a sudden, a glove is shoved in his face. It seems like Ghislaine was faster, and he threw the glove first, challenging Kane to a duel instead. As the glove is falling down, Kane cannot believe what just happened. Ghislaine turns his back and says that he has insulted him, the heir, in front of the people of Perdium, and also assaulted his knight, trashing the dignity of nobility. Seeing this, Ricardo is stunned while trying to tend to Scoven's wounds. Ghislaine then looks Kane right in the eyes and asks if he isn't perhaps thinking of denying it. Seeing this, both the spy and Kane look surprised. Kane smiles and says that he already knew Ghislaine was stupid, but he didn't know he was stupid enough to dig his own grave. Kane goes to pick up his sword and says that he will accept this duel. He points his sword towards Ghislaine and tells him not to regret his actions, even if he dies. Even now, with Kane's blade right by his face, Ghislaine remains composed, not a muscle twitching in his face. He then calls for Ricardo, and he prepares to take the order. Ghislaine tells Ricardo to bring all the merchants who are protesting in front of the castle to him. It looks like Ghislaine wants all of them there to see how he will make them big money. The festival was suddenly cancelled, and the atmosphere, which had heated up to its peak, suddenly cooled down, leaving behind some tourists who couldn't return out of regret. Ghislaine says that they must be in a state of incomplete combustion, as they are not able to spend their money or time. In such a situation, if an event were to take place to soothe them, things might change, Ghislaine thinks, and it appears that he has already thought about such an event, as a whole crowd seems to have gathered behind him. It looks like there's going to be a duel between Ghislaine and Kane, and people are throwing bets left and right. With this, the merchants in the streets have started once again selling their stuff. Even gamblers have a place where they relax, with one man preparing to take their bets in. With this said, everyone is throwing their coins on Master Kane. In the arena, Kane plunges his sword into the wood beneath his feet. Kane then asks Ghislaine how he dares turning a sacred duel into a marketplace. Then he tells Ghislaine that he wants to make one thing clear right from the beginning. His blade won't stop, even if Ghislaine surrenders. Hearing this, Ghislaine is speechless but realizes something. This must be exactly what Kane wants. After that, Ghislaine tells Kane that now, since they have enough people gathered, they should start. Suddenly, Kane's companion shouts for people to wait, getting Ghislaine's attention. The man says that he doesn't think a proper bet can proceed at this rate. Hearing this, some of the people wonder why that is. The betkeeper then reveals that this is because no one has placed any money on Lord Ghislaine. Hearing this, Ghislaine doesn't say a word. The people around the arena, though, start talking, saying that in all fairness, the result is too obvious, and that Ghislaine, that punk, has no chance against Master Kane. One guy even asks if there are any idiots stupid enough to bet on his side. Seeing this, Kane mocks Ghislaine, saying that even the marketplace is ignoring him. Another man then comes with a proposition to change the contents of the bet and see how long Ghislaine can endure against Master Kane. He then places a bag full of gold coins on the betkeeper's table. This is no other than Commander Scoven, being helped by one of his soldiers, saying that he will bet on his young Lord Ghislaine. Seeing this, Ghislaine smiles. Another bag is then being thrown on top of the first. This time, it's Elena and Belinda, saying that she would also like to bet on her big brother. This time everyone, even Ghislaine, remains stunned. Elena asks if her money would be enough to cover the bet, while Belinda tells her that she advised her against it. The bet's keeper, however, says that this would be more than enough. Seeing this, though, Kane's companion doesn't seem to be happy with this development. Kane even says that they are making him wait for no reason at all, being sure there is no way Ghislaine could win, or even stand against him. Then, someone tells them to get ready. Ghislaine tells Kane that since he is older than him, it would be weird if he makes the first move, and Kane asks what he means. With this, Ghislaine takes out his sword. He flips it around a couple of times. Then he cuts through the air, with the blade ending up at his side. This was a provocation, as Ghislaine tells Kane to come at him. Seeing this, Kane remains silent. As he prepares his attack, Kane asks Ghislaine if he doesn't think it's a little late for him to act as the older one. Someone gives the go, and Kane leaps from his spot. He attacks from above, prepared to take Ghislaine down in one strike. Thankfully, Ghislaine manages to block his attack. Ghislaine struggles, as Kane is indeed a powerful opponent. As he pushes down on Ghislaine with his sword, Kane tells his cousin that he has already stepped too low to save any face now. He then grabs his sword, and Ghislaine almost falls on his back. Kane tries to pin Ghislaine down with the handle of his sword, but Ghislaine manages to dodge it. While holding the blade of his sword with his bare hands, Kane once again prepares to attack Ghislaine. He tries to kick him, making rubble fly all around, but Ghislaine dodges. The crowd cheers for Kane, saying that as it is expected, he won't endure even one hit from his opponent. Hearing this, Kane laughs. Seeing his face, Ghislaine wonders why is he even laughing like that. Outside the arena, looking at the match, Belinda tells Elena that they must stop them somehow, but Elena remains silent. The informer from earlier, Kane's companion, says that it's too late already, as no matter who the opponent is, the moment they decide to cross swords against Kane, they're already trapped. The opponent, overwhelmed by that immense power, will become consumed by the thought that there's no chance to counterattack, and they will use up all their energy solely on evasion. In the end, the exhausted opponent, after only dodging for a while, will leave an opening and meet their end. The man says that Kane has always won that way, as Ghislaine dodges his every attack. Seeing this, Kane comments that Ghislaine is as slippery as ever, and that his skills must have indeed grown from how they were before. Kane then flips his sword around, grabbing it by the blade, and says that this makes sense. As he uses his sword like a bat, Kane says that in the end, Ghislaine was always good at running away. It looks like this time, Kane has managed to catch Ghislaine off guard, and manages to grab him with his sword's hilt. Doing this, he is able to throw him far into the air. Seeing this, everyone is left speechless. Kane's companion is most happy about it, saying that it's going to be over for Ghislaine. As he is falling, Ghislaine remains silent, and Kane prepares his next attack. But something unexpected happens. Ghislaine regains his composure, saying that he wanted to go easy on Kane. He used his mana to step on the wall behind him, and as he approaches Kane with murderous intent, he tells him that he would have gone easy on him if he wouldn't have crossed a line. Then, in an instant, he gets within inches of Kane. He attacks Kane, appearing to strike him in the stomach, and then he gets down. Seeing this, Kane cannot believe it. Even the spy doesn't understand how Ghislaine was able to do that, suspecting that he managed to condense mana into his legs to return to a standing position. Passing Kane, Ghislaine tells him that his swordsmanship is ignorant, and that he must have thought he was the strongest just because the opponent would get scared if he showed even a little bit of his strength. Thus, Ghislaine will teach Kane a lesson. Hearing this, Kane gets visibly annoyed. He leaps towards Ghislaine, prepared to strike him, and asks him how he is going to teach him anything. Seeing him approaching, Ghislaine prepares his feet. With the back of his foot, he hits Kane's hands. Then he starts spinning. In doing so, he cuts Kane's hand. Once again, Kane tries to attack Ghislaine, mad with fury. Unfortunately for him, once again Ghislaine dodges. After he does so, he pins Kane's sword to the ground. He then prepares to strike Kane himself. With one swift swing, Ghislaine cuts Kane's neck. As blood flows into the air, he remains unbothered, not a single emotion to be read on his face. Kane is left kneeling on the ground, still holding his sword with blood flowing from his neck. Everyone in the crowd is left speechless. Everyone starts cheering Ghislaine, saying that in the end, he has improved a lot, and wonder if he is going to win the duel. When this happens, Elena tells Belinda that she was right, and Scovan smiles. Looking at the situation, the spy notices something. The wounds made by Ghislaine are shallow, precise. Even though he could have made them deeper, he didn't want to. Kane even wonders how could that punk show such a level of swordsmanship. From the ground, he looks up at Ghislaine. So does Ghislaine towards Kane, but he doesn't speak even a word. Ghislaine then throws away the sword. He looks at Kane and says that such a skill gap won't provide enough entertainment. He then says that from now on, he will be fighting barehanded. Hearing this, Kane is not sure what to make of it. Ghislaine tells Kane that he wanted to use this opportunity to educate him today, with his bare knuckles that is. Hearing what Ghislaine just said, Kane cannot believe it. Ghislaine tells him that he is right, and now that it is clear Kane is no match for him in swordsmanship, he will take a handicap, and they will fight barehanded, where Kane is supposed to excel. If he wins, then he will get twice the initial amount, 2,000 gold. Hearing this, the bettors cannot believe it. Even the spy that came along is surprised. The spy cannot believe what Ghislaine is doing, and thinks that he would have never thought he'd see the day when he will be thankful for his insanity, and thinks that fortune is still on his side. The bet's keeper then announces the changes, and says that the event is a barehanded fight between the same opponents. Once again, everyone is betting on Kane, saying that challenging him in a sheer force contest is outright stupid, but it appears that there is a twist, and this time there are also people betting on young Master Ghislaine. Hearing what Ghislaine has proposed, Kane starts laughing, saying that Ghislaine amuses him. He tells Ghislaine that if this is what he wants, then they will fight without any weapons. He then throws away his cape. He prepares to strike Ghislaine once again, and tells Ghislaine that he will use the sword. Seeing this, Belinda calls Kane an asshole, and tells Ghislaine to also pick up his sword. Kane then swings his sword at Ghislaine. As he does, Ghislaine tells him that just as he thought, he needs to knock some sense into Kane. He tries to pin Ghislaine down, using his sword kinda like a spear, but he misses, as Ghislaine dodges his attack. Then he leaps to the side and prepares to hit Kane with his bare hands. He does so, and it's clear that Kane can feel the pain. Then Ghislaine prepares another hit. This time, he hits Kane right under his jaw, closing his mouth. After this hit, Kane seems to fall on his back. He regains his composure and manages to stay on his feet, but he is coughing up blood. With his face towards the ground, he asks himself how in hell can this punk display such movements. Seeing this, the crowd goes wild for Ghislaine, saying that at this rate, he might actually win this. Ghislaine then tells Kane to get up, as he's just gotten started. Hearing how cocky Ghislaine is, Kane gets even more mad and raises his head. He leaps from where he was standing, trying to hit Ghislaine once again. This time also, Ghislaine dodges the attack and goes in for a counter. Ghislaine hits Kane over the face, as he thinks that he couldn't even look him straight in the eyes until then. Ghislaine then twists Kane's hand, taking him down, and he thinks how Ghislaine used to bow down on his own whenever he showed up. Ghislaine then uses his knee to hit Kane on the side. As this happens, Kane still only thinks about the fact that he needs to kill Ghislaine in order to secure their Loge's family future. Unfortunately for him, it looks like Ghislaine keeps punching Kane over and over and over again. Kane, with his face all swollen up, he wonders, why? Ghislaine then goes to pick him up by his hair. While holding his head up, Ghislaine tells Kane that he pities his father, and Kane doesn't answer anything. Ghislaine tells Kane that Count Loges helped Perdium until it was on the verge of demise, just because he was friendly to his father. However, Kane had a different idea in his mind. Kane looks down, and blood seems to be flowing from everywhere. A few years ago, it seemed like a conversation was taking place, with someone asking if they are going to send more support to Perdium again. It seems like none of the nobles of the land were agreeing with what the Count was doing, saying that even if the Count is friends with the Count of Perdium, they are also having a hard time, and ask him why is he continuing to invest in a land that's withering away, saying that it's like pouring water into a cracked bucket. It looks like the most hurt about this was Kane. He was looking at his father, leaving to help Perdium, just a week after he had returned. He looks at his father from behind, wondering what he should say. He pleads for his father not to go. He says that everyone is trying to stop him, and asks his father why he insists on helping Perdium this much. His father turns his gaze towards him, but doesn't say anything. Kane then remembers what his father told him. He did it just because they were friends, and for no other reason. At this point, Ghislaine goes in for another hit. Seeing this, Kane closes his eyes and tries to tighten his muscles, but the hit doesn't come, and instead, Ghislaine tells him that this ought to educate him enough. Ghislaine has stopped hitting him, and instead is offering him his hand to help Kane stand up. For a second, Kane looks at his hand and doesn't say anything. Then he lets his head fall down. In front of the whole crowd, Kane says he admits defeat. Seeing this, no one in the crowd can believe it. The spy seems to be most surprised about this. Everyone then starts cheering for Ghislaine. Elena and Scoven are also happy, and Belinda is stunned. The spy then comes to talk with Kane. He shouts at Kane, asking him how he can admit defeat this early, just because he is at a little bit of a disadvantage, asking him what in the hell he is doing, and saying that he trusted Kane. Kane gets up from the ground and tells the man to let him go, as he is done, but the spy doesn't understand. He thinks that Ghislaine is a weak little brat and wonders what he should do now. Ghislaine then looks at the two men from behind and starts to speak. He smiles and says that now he gotta do what he gotta do. The spy turns around and asks Ghislaine what he means by that. From the middle of the arena, Ghislaine shouts that this man right here is offering to pay for all the meat and drinks for everyone gathered there. Seeing this, the spy cannot believe it. The spy comes to Ghislaine's face, saying that he did not agree to this, and asks him to withdraw his statement. Ghislaine then places his hand on the spy's shoulder. He tells him that this is the price for losing the duel, and tells him that he should at least have this much. And just to be clear, it won't be deducted from the bet. He grabs the man tighter, and tells him to remember to add 2,000 gold to the bet they've originally at 1,000 gold. He tells the man that if he runs, he should know what will happen. Looking at Ghislaine, the spy probably shits his pants by now. The man says he understands, and Ghislaine leaves. The next day in Ghislaine's room, a crate is being dropped on the floor. Ghislaine opens it, and it looks like it's full of gold. Taking some coins into his hands, Ghislaine thinks that he could hire a small mercenary corps with this much money, and thinks that it's no small amount. Even so, it takes a long time to grow money, and they won't wait for him. So to realize the business he has in mind, he has to prepare faster. Belinda and Elena also seem to be there, looking and smiling towards Ghislaine like they are waiting for something. Ghislaine faces them and asks what's up. Elena asks Ghislaine where he plans spending the money that he's just earned. With a cute yet clearly fake smile on her face, it's clear that she wants something. Ghislaine thinks the same as me, and asks Elena if he wants some, and she says that she's just asking. Belinda then comes and says that it's obvious where he will use it. Belinda says that it's Lady Amelia's birthday soon, and that Ghislaine must have put up such a show because he wants to buy her a very expensive present. Belinda goes on to say that Ghislaine is really transparent, and Elena says she cannot believe he would do that just to look good to his fiancée. Only, this might not be it, as Ghislaine didn't even know he had a fiancée. In fact, he is so stunned about this information that his first reaction when he turns around is to ask if he really had a fiancée. Hearing this, Belinda tells him that he doesn't need to be playing dumb because he is embarrassed they've read his mind, and Elena tells him that they are talking about Amelia from Rayfold County. Hearing that name seems to stir Ghislaine memory, and it seems like he pictures Amelia like a black widow, referring to her as that woman, Amelia Rayfold. Ghislaine then thinks that Amelia is a noble among nobles, known for her kind nature and actions towards everyone, regardless of status, thus gaining the deep support of the people in her territory. However, she would later incite rebellion and come to be known as the Witch of the North, and she joined hands with the Delphine Duchy to drive the final nail into the Père Diem's downfall, so Ghislaine came to simply view her as a traitor. This being said, Ghislaine smiles. He asks Belinda when their father is returning, and she replies saying she isn't sure, but that it should be around 1 more week. Hearing this, Ghislaine thinks that a week should be enough. He then stands up from his chair and tells Belinda and Elena that he is going to visit Rayfold County, and Belinda asks him why he would do that, as it's not even Amelia's birthday yet. That's when Ghislaine reveals that he is going to get money from them. Somewhere else, a woman, wearing a beautiful white and blue dress, with a spider hanging from the corner of her mouth, places some shoes on the ground. She then tells someone to wear them. It looks like she gave the shoes to a poor little girl, as she kneels before her. The kid recognizes the woman as Lady Amelia, and from her tone, it looks like she wants to say that there is no need for her to do that. Lady Amelia raises her gaze, and tells the little girl that if anyone has to walk barefooted on her land, it should only be her. She then turns to the guards escorting them, and orders them to provide food and shelter for the needy right away, and the guards comply. They immediately start distributing crates and barrels with food and supplies. The crowd thanks Lady Amelia as she turns away and leaves, escorted by her guards. Later, in Amelia's garden, someone seems to wash her feet after the stunt she just pulled. This is one of Amelia's escort knights, Bernaf, telling her she did a great job today. Then, Amelia explains that her father had always demanded absolute obedience from the people of his territory. She plays with her cat, and says that the common folk will always follow the one who keeps them warm and well-fed. Bernaf tells Amelia that with what she did today, she won over the people's hearts, and that this will definitely prove to be favorable in her future successor competition. Hearing this, Amelia remains silent. She then lightly hits Bernaf in the face with her foot. She asks him what happened in the duel against the finest sword of the North. Bernaf apologizes, and says that he did what he did in order to avoid needless attention, as if he were to stand victorious. People might start paying attention to Amelia. She then takes her feet in his hand, and says that it is not yet the time to reveal her claws. Bernaf kisses her feet, and says that this is because his blade is hers. Wonder which blade he is talking about. Amelia tells him that she is not expecting anything less from him, as she has invested so much to raise him. She places her finger under his jaw, and pulls the man's head up. She gets closer to him, and tells him that he is not allowed to be weak. Amelia then changes the subject of the matter, asking Bernath what is the situation with the merchants, and he tells her that if she refers to the Arctium Merchants Guild, she needs not to worry. All the materials used for the reconstruction of the Forest of Beasts outpost, which was recently half destroyed by the orc attacks in Perdium, are being purchased through their merchant guild. In essence, Bernath says that they are recouping all the support funds that Count Rayfold sends to Perdium each year. Moreover, they are recruiting all the soldiers and knights leaving Perdium, many of which are well trained from battles against the barbarian tribes, making them excellent quality. Amelia is happy with this developments, and tells Bernath to maintain the appearances of an ordinary merchant guild, and be thorough. They cannot let their true identity be exposed until they've fully built up their strength. A servant then comes, and disturbs the two. Bernath goes to the man, saying that the lady is currently resting, and asks who permitted him to enter, and the servant tells Bernath that he just received news from the gate, and that the young Lord Ghislaine Perdium has come to visit. Hearing this, Amelia wonders why would that punk come there. The servant seems to know the answer, but is afraid to say it. Even so, he tells the two that Ghislaine came to discuss with Amelia about the Merchant Guild, which seems to bother them greatly. It looks like they've taken Ghislaine to the visitor's room. Ghislaine and Amelia are sitting across from each other, and as always, Amelia is playing with her cat. This time Ghislaine does look something like a lord, and even seems to hold a flower in his hand and greets Amelia. Amelia doesn't seem to like his visit one bit, and the cat even hisses at him. Amelia tells Ghislaine that his visit is quite unpleasant, as he came without any prior notification, and asks him if he hasn't yet learned proper etiquette manners. Ghislaine says that since it's her birthday soon, he thought he would come to give her a present in advance. He places the flower on the table, and tells Amelia that he picked it up from the Merchant Guild up ahead, and the fragrance is quite nice. Ghislaine says that he plans to buy flowers from there from now on, but says he cannot remember the name right now. Then he asks if it was the Actium Merchant Guild. Seeing this, Amelia remains quiet. She tells Ghislaine that she is not sure what Ghislaine wants to say with all this. She stands up and says that since she received Ghislaine's gift, she will be off, and says goodbye to him. However, this treatment doesn't work with Ghislaine anymore, as next, he calls Amelia by her full name and tells her to sit down. Hearing this, Amelia is not sure what to say. She looks towards Ghislaine and wonders what is up with this kind of pressure from the very guy who used to squirm, barely able to speak whenever she stood in front of him. Ghislaine looks at his cup of coffee and tells Amelia that they should get straight to the point, saying that he needs some money right now and asks her for 10,000 gold. Hearing this, Amelia doesn't understand, asking Ghislaine what he means by that. She tells Ghislaine that visiting out of nowhere and asking for such a large sum from his fiancée is quite unusual, and asks Ghislaine if she should take it as the will of Count Perdium, but Ghislaine tells her that this has nothing to do with his father. Ghislaine then turns the cup of coffee upside down and tells Amelia that in the end, she is not planning to marry him anyway. Hearing this, Amelia remains speechless. Ghislaine tells Amelia to take that escort knight, for example. If she becomes the lord of this land, that might be more than possible. But before that, if word about her secretary building up her power spreads in Rayfold, where the fight for succession is fierce, things might be bad for her. At this point, the cat looks like she's about to jump right at Ghislaine's face. Amelia dropped the cat and went to speak to Ghislaine. She looks him dead in the eye and tells Ghislaine that he shouldn't say such things, not even as a joke. Ghislaine looks at Amelia and says that she needn't worry, as he will keep that sacred for a bit. Of course, he might not keep those words if he leaves the room empty-handed, and Amelia says that of course that won't happen. Amelia then calls for Bernaf, and the doors open. Bernaf enters the room and comes towards the two of them. He stops before Ghislaine, placing his hand on his chest as a sign of respect, and greets Ghislaine, saying that it's been a while. Looking at him, Ghislaine recognizes him and says that he's the guy who has always stayed by Amelia's side, a skilled individual who possesses the potential to be compared to the finest sword of the North at the time. Ghislaine says that if he dies here, a war may break out, and asks Amelia if she is sure she can handle that, and Amelia says that of course she can. She raises her hand and explains her scenario. A sudden ruffian barged in, caused chaos, and was killed by the hand of the escort knight. This is what the world will hear about Ghislaine's demise. Amelia then orders Bernaf to kill Ghislaine. Bernaf obliges and takes out his sword. Seeing this, Ghislaine remains silent and thinks that if this is how she wants to play, so be it. Ghislaine also takes his sword in his hand and says that there is no other way but for him to get a little serious. Ghislaine and Bernaf are standing face to face, prepared to fight. Bernaf smiles, and Ghislaine notices something unusual, a noise coming from one of the armors behind him. Suddenly, an assassin leaps towards him, prepared to strike Ghislaine from behind. The assassin drives his sword through the back of the couch in order to puncture Ghislaine. Unfortunately for him, Ghislaine was fast enough to get under the couch and dodge his attack entirely. He then uses his feet to kick the assassin right in the stomach. The hit is so powerful he throws him across the room. Seeing this, both Amelia and Bernaf are left speechless. Ghislaine then turns towards the two of them and says that he didn't expect them to feign politeness while launching a surprise attack. Ghislaine then leaps towards Bernaf and says that this is called poor hospitality. They clench swords, and it looks like Bernaf has easily blocked Ghislaine's attack. Inches away from Bernaf's face, Ghislaine asks him if Rayfold has never heard of chivalry. Bernaf apologizes and says that they weren't the ones who were rude first, and says that arriving unannounced and unsettling the lady was very inconsiderate of Ghislaine. Bernaf then grabs Ghislaine's sword, and as he prepares to attack once again, says that there is no need to be polite to such a person. He tries to drive his sword through Ghislaine's chest, but he dodges and tries to take back his blade. He does so, and prepares to unleash an attack on Bernaf. He places himself down on the floor and kicks him in the chest. Ghislaine is still standing, and Bernaf has been thrown back a couple of meters. Bernaf couldn't believe it, as until then, he had heard that Lord Ghislaine was all talk with no real skill to back it up. But it looks to Bernaf he is no rookie. Amelia even seems disappointed, asking Bernaf why he is taking so long against a punk like Ghislaine, but he is not sure what to say. Amelia tells Bernaf to hurry and bring her his head, if he really considers himself to be her sword. Hearing this, Bernaf remains quiet, but clearly motivated. He grips his sword tighter and tells Amelia that he won't disappoint her. He points at Ghislaine with his sword and tells him to come forth. Hearing this, Ghislaine asks Bernaf how he, an escort knight, dared to order him around. Bernaf tells Ghislaine that he was doing him a favor, but if he insists, he will take action. Bernaf will do as Ghislaine wishes. He leaps forward, and in an instant, he closes the distance between the two of them, leaving Ghislaine stunned. Ghislaine barely manages to dodge his attack this time, leaning to the side. Even so, Bernaf managed to cut him on the cheek, and Ghislaine thinks that he is really fast. However, Burnaf doesn't seem to be done. He continues attacking Ghislaine, and their fight is fierce. Looking at the two of them, Amelia wonders how Ghislaine, who was called a lousy punk, fights Burnaf on equal footing. Amelia then notices something. Ghislaine manages to parry Burnaf's attack, sliding his blade towards him. He is trying to close the distance between the two of them. He reaches the hilt of Burnaf's and tries to hit him. He tried driving his sword forward, but he wasn't quick enough. Once again, Burnaf wraps his hand around Ghislaine's sword, trying to pin him. He tries to cut Ghislaine, but he leaps to the side. Seeing this, he tries the same trick as before, in order to get some distance from Burnaf. Only this time, things might be different. Ghislaine tries pulling his sword and hitting Burnaf at the same time. Unfortunately for him, Burnaf has seen through his attack and says that this won't work twice. Then, he throws Ghislaine to the ground. After that, Burnaf stands above Ghislaine, prepared to strike him down for good. This time though, it looks like Ghislaine is the one surprising Burnaf and blocking his strike with his foot. He then leaps into the air and gets back down to the ground. Ghislaine, realizing that Burnaf must be enduring this using mana. Burnaf then approaches Ghislaine, saying that he is quite different from what he has heard, and says that the saying that you never truly know until you've fought them yourself is true. He tells Ghislaine that his swordsmanship doesn't look like something he learned systematically, but rather like something he has picked up through real combat experience, and asks if he has perhaps fought with barbarians so often that he naturally adopted their style. He throws Ghislaine's sword on the ground behind him, and says that such a method might work in a chaotic battlefield, but it won't work against him. He looks Ghislaine dead in the eyes, and says that his deviation ends there. Ghislaine looks at Burnaf, and says that just as expected, this is difficult. The narrow, precise thrusts of the blade that constantly target the head mess with his sense of distance and timing, and at close range the difference in size makes it hard for Ghislaine to overpower him with technique alone. In the first place, he wasn't an opponent he should have tried to take out. But the thing is, Ghislaine doesn't have much time either, so he uses his mana strings. He uses the strings to pull his sword back to himself. Seeing the mana string, Burnaf seems surprised. He tries to look back and see where the thread leads, but it's too late. The hilt of Ghislaine's sword has already hit him in the back of the head. Then Ghislaine leaps over, placing his foot on Burnaf's leg. He then uses his knee and hits Burnaf right in the face. Seeing this, Burnaf wonders what just happened. Even Amelia is left in shock, shouting Burnaf's name. Then Ghislaine prepares to once again attack from above. He slams down his sword, but Burnaf manages to block it. This time, Burnaf is clearly at a disadvantage. Even so, he manages to throw Ghislaine back. Burnaf takes back his stance, and Ghislaine slides across the room. Burnaf goes in front of Amelia and tells her that she needs to get out of there. Burnaf tells Amelia that from now on he cannot guarantee her safety, as he will give it his all to terminate Ghislaine. Hearing this, Ghislaine says that this is what he likes to see, as he hasn't had such an interesting opponent in a long time. Next, Amelia runs across the halls. She thinks about Ghislaine, and how he even dares cause her so much trouble. She wonders who could be the idiot who leaked information about the Merchant Guild to that madman, and that there is no way he'd know about it in so much detail if not for that. The rumors about him, slaying orcs, protecting his younger sister from assassins, and even defeating the heir of Loge. Judging by that rascal's past, Amelia thought it must have been either luck or exaggerated information, but she wonders if he could have really done all that. She then turns a corner, and wonders what on earth are the guards she stationed in advance doing. As she gets to the place where she stationed them, another feminine figure seems to have disposed of them all. The person notices Amelia and turns around. It turns out it was none other than Belinda, who now greets Lady Amelia, saying that it's been a while. She sees Belinda and asks her why she is there. Belinda, however, smiles and tells her to sush. In the next instant, Belinda has gotten behind Amelia and placed a small blade at her neck. Seeing this, Amelia can't understand how this is possible. Belinda then takes Amelia's spider from her lips, saying that it's quite unpleasant seeing her like this. She tells Amelia that she remembers a moment during the engagement ceremony, where she eavesdropped on a conversation between Count Rayfold and Count Perdium. She heard of how Amelia's sibling picked on her for having creepy spiders around her, so she raised the spiders herself and took her revenge. Belinda then looks at the spider and says that she doesn't know whether it's to overcome trauma or a display of self-assertion. She then drops the spider on the ground and asks Amelia for her forgiveness and tells her that it doesn't suit her at all. She then crushes the spider under her feet. Then, looking towards the crumbled spider, she asks Amelia if she can count on her cooperation. Inside the visitor's room, Burnaf and Ghislaine are still facing each other. Looking towards Burnaf, Ghislaine says that even the air is rough. It looks like Burnaf is using an overwhelming amount of mana. Burnaf then replies to Ghislaine, reiterating what Ghislaine has said when he called him an entertaining opponent. He tells Ghislaine that what he said sounds like something that a lowly mercenary would say, and asks Ghislaine how he even dares to call himself a noble like his lady Amelia. Ghislaine gets annoyed and mockingly says that of course he is a noble, and that isn't something that a lowly escort knight should be concerned with. With this, Bernaf doesn't reply to anything, but mana can be seen flowing around the two of them. He goes for an attack on Ghislaine and starts speaking to him. As Ghislaine blocks his attack, Bernaf tells him not to disgrace the nobility. Attacking Ghislaine, Bernaf's attacks so fast, it looks like there's 100 swords coming at him at once. Ghislaine is clearly taken by surprise. Even so, he manages to parry all the attacks. He barely manages to dodge his attacks anymore, and they all seem to be aimed for Ghislaine's head. Even Ghislaine acknowledges that Bernaf is fiercely pushing forward. Then, Ghislaine says that this is enough. He tries taking the upper hand. He is now the one attacking Bernaf and pushing him back. But Bernaf seems to be blocking all of his attacks, leaving him open. Ghislaine also understands the situation he is in, and Bernaf starts talking to him. As he launches his next attack, Bernaf tells him that it looks like that was his final attack. This time, it looks like Ghislaine won't manage to escape unharmed. Blood splatters, but Bernaf is shocked by what he sees. Ghislaine braced himself for the injury and used his shoulder to push away his blade. Then he takes his sword and once again tries to strike Bernaf. Seeing this, Bernaf acknowledges Ghislaine's skill, saying that indeed, it looks like he cannot let his guard down until the end. However, Bernaf is still confident, moving Ghislaine's sword to the side with his next attack, once again creating an opening. He kicks Ghislaine and throws him back. He then says that this is the difference between him and a man who wields his blade for entertainment. His kick was so powerful, it looks like he sent Ghislaine all the way to the other side of the room. Once again, Ghislaine looks at Bernaf and says that just as expected, this is entertaining. With overwhelming speed, range, and consecutive attacks, Bernaf controls the flow of the fight. Any attempt to counter him in close quarters through grappling is instantly shut down. In a binding clash, he makes it seem as though their swords are locked together, deceiving Ghislaine into thinking they can't be separated. With his current mana, Ghislaine can't counter his strength, but by that, he means the mana he has right at this moment. Ghislaine grabs his sword tighter and says that it's a shame he has to bring him down here. Ghislaine takes his stance and tells Bernaf that there is one thing he overlooked. That is his unique mana cultivation technique. Ghislaine leaps forward and unleashes his third core. Once again, he clenches swords with Bernaf, but this time things are different. This time, Ghislaine is the one that throws away Bernaf's sword. Looking at Ghislaine, Bernaf is left amazed. He does not understand how he can wield such explosive mana during combat. In the last second, someone tells for them to stop, and Ghislaine stops with the tip of his sword touching Bernaf's forehead. This was Belinda, taking Amelia hostage. Amelia tells Ghislaine to take the 10,000 gold and get out of there, as Belinda still holds the blade to her neck. Ghislaine looks over and says that what happened was a whole hassle, and that it all would have been easier if Amelia would have handed him the money when he asked. Then he takes away his sword, and a small stream of blood starts flowing from Bernaf's forehead. As Ghislaine turns away, Bernaf falls to the ground, and Belinda asks Ghislaine if this isn't a little much to call it a lover's quarrel, and Ghislaine said that they've just had a bit of difference in opinion. Ghislaine then places his sword on his shoulder, and says to Amelia that he has some unfortunate news for her. It looks like the fee just went up to 20,000 gold. In the main hall, all the soldiers are left on the ground. The visitor's room wall has a hole in it. The vase on the table fell on the ground as the cat was hiding under the other couch still standing. It looks like Amelia was the one that broke this case, annoyed by what just happened. Bernaf lets his head down, apologizing to Amelia, and tells her that Ghislaine was a strong individual. Bernaf says that in an instant, Ghislaine emitted mana surpassing that of an advanced level knight. Thinking about what happened, Amelia thinks that Ghislaine must have really changed. Bernaf asks if Amelia would like for him to report this to the Delphine Duchy, but it looks like these words were not to be spoken. Out of nowhere, Amelia smacks Bernaf over the face. He grabs Bernaf's collar and tells him to watch his mouth, asking if he understands how scary of a person that Duke Delphine is. Amelia tells Bernaf that if he finds out about today's incident, they are all done for. She tells Bernaf that the reason for which she secretly allied with Duke Delphine without her father's knowledge was because they had a covert agreement. He would support the rebellion she would lead in exchange for her assistance in bringing down Perdium. The moment this is exposed, it's certain that her siblings will kill Amelia. If he knows the secret of the Merchant Guild, he might also know of this agreement. Therefore, they must do whatever it takes to kill Ghislaine. Hearing this, Bernaf bows his head and says that he understands. Amelia asks how was the condition of Ghislaine's body, and Bernaf says that he managed to leave right injuries on many parts of his body and a heavy one on his shoulder. Not only that, but because he had spent an explosive amount of mana, he would not be in his best condition for some time. However, there is something else. To not leave any traces, they cannot use the knights from their land, and Amelia agrees. She then turns to Bernaf saying that this is why they have them trained for times like this, and Burnaf can't believe Amelia refers to them. She wants to use the Wildcats to kill Ghislaine. Amelia explains that the group consists of war orphans, those without kin, and those without status. Only the most talented natural-born specialists are among them, the Wildcat traffickers. Amelia tells Burnaf to assemble a dozen of them, and only those who are proficient with mana, and send them to the pointed location. Looking to where she placed the pin on the map, Burnaf understands Amelia's plan. That ravine is the only narrow path from the Rayfold territory to Perdium. It is an ideal place for quietly handling things, as the area is remote and the terrain is tight. Burnaf then tells Amelia that he will have them prepared. At this point, Amelia says that Ghislaine will pay for the humiliation he presented her with. A carriage can then be seen running outside the city. Inside, Ghislaine patches his shoulder. Scoven asks Ghislaine if he is sure he is okay, and Ghislaine tells him not to worry, as the injuries are minimal. He thinks that the cuts aren't deep, and it's not bad considering that he did take things a little overboard. He then looks back at the crate on his carriage, and thinks that the 20,000 gold he received from Amelia is enough to cover the base funds needed to rebuild their territory, the same amount he would have had after saving for a few years. He thinks that it would have been great if he could have killed Amelia as well, but a war would have been unavoidable in that case. Ghislaine cannot risk the safety of their territory because of his momentary whims. He thinks that Perdium is having a difficult time dealing with just the barbarians, so it's ideal that he backs off here. The fact that he knows about the secret of the Arctium Merchants Guild will put enough if a burden on Amelia. Ghislaine thinks that this time around, he will make good use of Amelia. Belinda then looks at Ghislaine without saying anything. She asks Ghislaine if things are going exactly as he said, but he is not sure what to reply. Belinda talks about the orders she was given by Ghislaine, how he told her to subdue the guards once she heard fighting noises on the inside, and to take Lady Amelia hostage when she came out of the room. Ghislaine then remembers that he has indeed said that, but he told Fergus to do the last part. Then, all of a sudden, Ghislaine feels a sharp pain. He starts coughing up blood, and Fergus is scared. Looking at his palm, Ghislaine thinks that this must be the recoil from opening up the third core, and thinks that it's still better than last time. But it'd be troublesome to go through this every time he decides to use his power. He thinks that he needs to find a way to increase his mana quickly, while Belinda takes his hand, which seems to shock him a little bit. She places 2 fingers on his wrist, looking at something. She takes the small blade she used to threaten Amelia with, and says that the flow of mana in Ghislaine's body is a mess. Then she starts puncturing his palm in different places. It looks like Ghislaine has realized what she is doing. Suddenly he feels the need to let air out. It looks like he let out mana itself. Looking at his hand, he thinks that it looks like his entangled mana road has opened up a bit, and that this is a method which can only be executed with a deep understanding of mana. Ghislaine then raises his gaze, and thinks that she knew Belinda wasn't just an ordinary maid ever since his mother brought her in. The real question is, who really is she? He cannot understand why such a skilled individual is working as a head maid in the countryside, but it doesn't really matter. Ghislaine thinks that it's good to have as many skilled individuals as possible on their land, because the ones he's encountered so far are just the beginning. As the carriage rides as fast as possible, Belinda starts a conversation with Ghislaine. She tells Ghislaine that she will help him with anything, because she trusts him unconditionally, and asks Ghislaine why he needed to take such a huge amount of money from Lady Amelia. Ghislaine thinks of a response, but can only tell Belinda that he needs to spend money, and Amelia is the only rich person he knows. Hearing this, Belinda can't believe it. She starts shouting at Ghislaine, saying that if this is the only reason, he will be in big trouble after Count Rayfold finds out about him breaking the engagement and the whole situation. But Ghislaine assures Belinda that everything is fine, and that Amelia cannot tell her father about this. Then, Ghislaine asks Belinda if she really trusts him. She says that she does. Belinda asks if Ghislaine isn't going to at least tell the person that too, the risk with him what he is going to use the money for. Ghislaine then tells Belinda that he is going to use it for the Forest of Beasts, which seems to scare her for some reason. It turns out that Ghislaine wants to pioneer the Forest of Beasts. Hearing this, Fergus says that he cannot, as development has been attempted there ever since his great-grandfather's time, but it wasn't possible. Ghislaine, however, cuts Fergus short, and asks him if he remembers Ghislaine's request before entering the castle. Hearing this, Fergus starts sweating. He bites his lip under his thick mustache and goes to speak. He tells Ghislaine that the person he has asked him to find was indeed at the location he mentioned, and asks him if he is sure about him as his condition wasn't the best. Ghislaine tells him that as long as the person is alive, it's fine, and that they should head down there right now, but Belinda says they need to return him for now, as they can't wander around in Ghislaine's current condition. Ghislaine asks Belinda if she really thinks that Amelia is going to let them go easily after what they've just done to her, and it seems like she agrees. Ghislaine then thinks that knowing Amelia, she will try to either kill him or silence him. Belinda starts shouting, saying that she is good at fighting and that old man Fergus is still a knight. She wants to say that she can handle it, but Ghislaine cuts in, saying that while she is reliable, this is not her role. He then tells his companions that he needs a vanguard. That is why they are on their way to meet him. At the dawn of night, it looks like they've arrived at a beaten-down cabin in the woods. Ghislaine goes to knock on the door. Looking around, Belinda says that it's almost as if this place is abandoned, and Fergus says that the address points them to here. The door opens, and someone comes out. An old man with bushes for eyebrows. Looking through his long eyebrows, the man asks who came to disturb him. Seeing him, everyone is in shock. Belinda asks Ghislaine if he is sure this is the right person, and says that he doesn't think he is in any condition to fight, let alone survive tomorrow, and Ghislaine says that this is the right place. Looking at Ghislaine, the man realizes something. He goes back inside, closing the door rapidly, and realizing Ghislaine is a noble, asks him if he is bored, telling him not to waste his time and get lost, but Ghislaine tells him to wait. It appears that Ghislaine calls him by a familiar name and title, the ex-captain of the Ratatosk Mercenaries. He is Jillian. Hearing this, the man turns around and takes another look at Ghislaine. Ghislaine extended his hand and told the man that he longed to see him. Hearing that name, neither Fergus nor Ricardo can't believe it's him. The Ratatosk Mercenaries is a group that only those who have mastered most weapons can join. Although they no longer exist, their bravery is such that any knight, even in foreign lands, is bound to hear their name at least once. And the captain of that mercenary group is Jillian. Once again, with his hand extended, Ghislaine tells Jillian that he has come to meet him. All of a sudden, an axe flies towards Ghislaine's head. Ghislaine moves his head and dodges it. Seeing this, no one can believe the speed of what just happened. Jillian throws his cards on the face and tells Ghislaine that he didn't expect for someone like him to know who he was. At this point, everyone has gotten in front of Ghislaine in order to protect him. With a menacing look on his face, Jillian asks them to state their business. Belinda puts his hand in front of Ghislaine, telling him to stay back, saying that this man is not in his right mind. Ghislaine speaks the words, "The eternal punishment." This is sure to get Jillian's attention. Ghislaine tells the man that he knows the cure to the incurable illness his daughter is suffering from. He then asks the man if this piques his interest. High fever, coughing blood, and red spots blooming like flower petals on the skin. The sight of the patient writhing in pain, resembling a prisoner under punishment, gave this incurable disease its name, the eternal punishment. Inside the hut, it looks like the man's daughter is in tremendous amounts of pain. Jillian goes to hug his daughter, shouting out her name, Rachel, as she screams in pain. Looking at her, Ghislaine thinks that it's not too late for her. He tried searching for Jillian to recruit him, but he was not of this world by the time he found him. He had given up everything and ended his own life as soon as his daughter passed away. Judging from the condition of this house, all of his assets must have been spent on treatment for his daughter, and the only thing left are the weapons. Rachel keeps screaming, saying how much everything hurts, and saying that she just wants to die and be done with it, begging her father to kill her. Ghislaine takes off his coat, thinking there is no time to waste, and tells Jillian that he will start the treatment right away. Before he is able to start, Belinda places her hand on Ghislaine's shoulder. He looks at Ghislaine and asks him to go away. She tells Ghislaine that she doesn't know what he is trying to do, but this isn't something he can solve with just strength. It is a disease so severe that even priests can't cure it and call it a punishment from the gods, and asks Ghislaine what he's planning on doing. Ghislaine stretches up, saying that he can fix her, and Belinda shouts at him to stop. Ghislaine then turns around, asking Belinda if she still trusts him. Hearing this, Belinda cannot say anything anymore. He then hands her a piece of paper, telling her to take it. He tells Belinda to purchase all the medical herbs on that list and come back. Seeing this, Belinda can't believe what Ghislaine is doing. Ghislaine then thinks that for wandering mercenaries without a home, knowledge is directly tied to survival. Eternal punishment. Although it's an incurable disease right now, a cure will be discovered in the future. It became quite a hot topic back then, especially since the method was relatively simple. Thanks to that, Ghislaine can remember it clearly. The only problem was the exorbitant cost of the ingredients. Ghislaine needed to get his hands on the fairy's blessing. He needed to finely chop the fairy's blessing and the herbs, pack them tightly into a bottle, and pour distilled alcohol over them. Shake well to mix it thoroughly and let it sit for a while. Then, add the remaining ingredients and stir. Ghislaine then presents Ghislaine with a little bottle. He gives it to the man and tells him to have Rachel drink it. Thus, Jillian pours the bottle in his daughter's mouth. Immediately, the crying stops. Within moments, the red spots start to fade away. It looks like Ghislaine has really managed to cure her. Seeing this, no one can believe it. Fergus and Belinda both acknowledge the fact that Rachel is getting better before their eyes. Jillian starts smiling and wonders if the medicine really worked. Looking at her from behind, Ghislaine says that just as expected, the medicine works well. Jillian turns around, asking him how he managed to do that, as not even divine power was able to cure her. Ghislaine explains to the man that the priest's divine power isn't omnipotent. It only enhances the body's vitality and strengthens a person's regenerative abilities to help overcome the illness, which is different from a fundamental cure. With shaking hands, Gillian goes to grab Ghislaine. On his knees before Ghislaine, Gilliam asks if his daughter can really be cured. Ghislaine looks down at the man and guarantees to him that in a couple of months she will be cured. Hearing this, the man cannot believe it. Gillian kneels before Ghislaine, placing his hand on his chest as a sign of respect. With his head bowed, Gillian asks Ghislaine what he wants from him, as he must have traveled all the way here to find him, because he wants something from him. However, he says, all he has left is this useless body of his. Gillian then shouts, saying that if Ghislaine needs him to be his dog, he shall be. If he commands him to be his slave, he will do as told. Ghislaine tells him that he needs none of those things. What he needs is Gillian, the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries, and extends his hand to the man. Gillian looks at Ghislaine and sees something in his eyes. He says that those are the eyes of a dreamer. Gillian stands up and grabs his tail. With an axe, he cuts it down, letting it fall to the ground. They all stand before Ghislaine and look at the man before them. They wonder how this could even be. Just like that, he is completely different from before. Next, Gillian goes towards his weapon barrels. He turns his head and asks if there was anyone else besides those here who have come with him, or if there might be someone who came looking for them. Ghislaine looks at him and says that it's just them. Gillian takes a spear and asks Ghislaine if there is anyone who holds a grudge against him, and Ghislaine says that there is, and that there will also be more in the future. With the spear in his hand, Gillian prepares an attack. He throws the spear through a wall while having it tied to a rope. It seems it was aimed at a bush close by. After hitting its target, Gillian pulls the spear back. It looks like along with it comes a man that was struck by the spear, which went right through his chest. Instantly, Gillian takes the man by the neck, making him choke. As the man trembles in his grasp, Gillian's question is simple. Who sent him? Trying to withhold the Gillian's power, the man asks how he knew. Gilliam turns towards Ghislaine, asking him what he would like to do with this one, and Ghislaine says that he already knew who sent him. Ghislaine then takes out his sword and says that he did not want to use his blade on a day like this, but it looks like it will be necessary. Seeing this, Gillian stops Ghislaine. He tells Ghislaine to leave this to him. He tightens his grip and breaks the man's neck. After doing so, he bows to Ghislaine, leaving Belinda shocked. Looking at Gillian, she thinks how he had no hesitation in killing, and wonders why would Ghislaine recruit such a dangerous person. Gillian then kneels before Ghislaine, stating his name and title, addressing him as young master. He looks into Ghislaine's eyes and says that from now on, he will leave his life into his hands. Ghislaine looks at Gillian, thinking that with this, he has secured a crucial card for the upcoming reconstruction plan, and tells Gillian that he looks forward to working with him. Inside a hut at the edge of some swamp, someone says that a reconnaissance unit has been killed. The other wildcats cannot believe it and call the dead person foolish. Then, one of them, who appears to be the boss, tells them to be quiet. This man is known by the alias Viego, and he tells the others to lower their voices. Hearing this, the others apologize, addressing the man as captain. Virgo then goes on to speak, saying that according to Sir Bernaf's intel, Ghislaine shouldn't even be able to find a reconnaissance unit, let alone kill them. Therefore, he asks if the reconnaissance unit was incompetent, or if the intel was wrong, and the lower rank doesn't know what to reply. After a few seconds of thinking, the soldier replies, telling the captain that Gillian has joined their group, which seems to take Viego by surprise. He grabs the soldier by the neck and grabs him closer. Clearly mad, he asks the man if he is sure about this. Seeing the state of Viego, the soldier doesn't lose a bit and says that he has seen it with his own eyes. Hearing this, Viego seems to be thrilled, thinking that finally, Gillian has made a move. It appears that Gillian was Viego's former captain. Gillian can then be seen dressed in armor, driving the carriage with 2 horses in which Ghislaine and the others came. Inside, among the weapons Gillian brought with him, Belinda says that she is suffocating. She asks Ghislaine if Gillian really had to bring all of this stuff, mocking him, asking if he is some kind of weapons dealer. Because of him, they had to buy a whole other carriage. Ghislaine tells Belinda that it was no trouble, as they had to buy a new one in order to bring Rachel comfortably. Fergus and Ricardo also seem to be following them in the other carriage. Ghislaine, looking around, says that Gillian does have a use for all of it, so she should just bear with it for now. As they enter the ravine pointed on the map by Amelia, Ghislaine says that the most important thing at hand is to escape this rift. This being said, Belinda wonders about the Watcher they've caught, and asks if it was sent by Lady Amelia, to which Ghislaine says that he is almost certain of it. Belinda says that this could be trouble. The mask he was wearing was a symbol used by the Wildcat Traffickers, a fairly powerful guild in Rayfold. Hearing the name, Ghislaine starts thinking about it. Belinda explains that their main trade is smuggling, along with assassination, drug and human trafficking, and more. She says that they are filthy scum who take on all the vile work. Among them are many skilled former mercenaries, making them a shadowy guild armed with combat power. Ghislaine asks Belinda how she knows all that, since all she was doing was staying in the castle. and Belinda says that she heard a lot of things before working for Lord Perdium. In any case, she tells Ghislaine that they are really persistent, so they should be careful. Hearing this, Ghislaine starts smiling. Belinda looks at him, and Ghislaine says that he will be fine. That is because they have Jillian with them. Suddenly, from behind the carriage, two things seem to emerge from the ground. They come from the back and are aiming for the front of the carriage. Jillian, of course, notices this immediately and remains completely calm. All of a sudden, two assassins jump at him in order to get the kill. He takes both his weapons strapped to his back and thinks about their ambush from the ground. Jillian manages to block both of them with ease. Then he prepares an attack of his own. Within seconds, he cuts them both the hands they were holding weapons with. Then he takes another swing with the ace. With this, he smashes the head of one of the attackers. The assassin falls from the carriage, left to die on the ground. Another two assassins jump towards Jillian and the carriage. This time it looks like they are coming from above, and they've also set a trap. Jillian notices this, and Belinda says that at this rate, they will be crushed. Jillian pulls on the horse reins, trying to stop them. He manages to do so right before the three fall down right in front of them. Ghislaine thinks that this is an ambush, just what he expected from Amelia. At least for more assassins seem to be waiting around the carriage. Virgo addresses Jillian directly, calling him by his title, former captain of the Ratatosk Mercenaries. Seeing this, Jillian wonders who it could be. Virgo then continues, calling Jillian a coward who disbanded an entire group of mercenaries merely because of his daughter, and there also appears to be a lot more wildcats behind him. Jillian gets down from the carriage and tells the man that he has no idea what he's talking about. Virgo tells Jillian that he ended up living a life that he never wanted because of him, and asks him if he has gotten so senile that he can't even remember his former peer. Jillian, however, has no reply for Viego. Seeing this, Viego says that Jillian must be playing dumb, in which case he will make him remember. He then gives the order for 3 assassins to proceed and kill all of them. Ghislaine asks Jillian if he needs any help, but Jillian tells him to rest, as they seem to have some kind of business with him. He prepares to swing his axe, and tells Ghislaine that he should be okay on his own. In one hit, he takes out all of the attackers. They keep coming, and swearing at Jillian. With a knife in one hand, and the axe in the other, Jillian prepares to strike. 2 wildcats are approaching him, and Jillian blocks his hit with the knife, and strikes him with the axe. With his next hit, he cuts the arm of the assassin and punctures his neck with the knife. Then the other one comes, and once again Jillian easily blocks his attack. With one swing of his axe, Jillian guts the man instantly. Looking at the scene, Viego thinks that just as expected, he must be as strong as he used to be. But there is something else. He gives the order to his soldiers to spread into 2 groups and ambush him from both sides. Hearing this, Jillian gets on his horse. The wildcats are not sure how to react. Then, Jillian takes out an even bigger axe from the bag the horse was carrying. He swings the axe above his head and prepares to ride into the crowd. As he gets close, Jillian prepares to attack. He cuts 3 people in just one swing. One of the wildcats says he can't even get close to him, and the others say that they must aim for the horse. Once again, Jillian prepares to swing. This time, it looks like he took out 6 or 7 people. Seeing this, Belinda is horrified. One assassin tries striking Jillian down from above, but he notices his intent. He takes a shield and prepares to defend himself. He places the shield in front of him and easily blocks the assassin's attack. This was actually Viego, who now tells Jillian that since he ruined his life, he should at least not hinder his work. He takes out 3 small knives and tells Jillian that he will make sure to kill him. He strikes the horse in the neck and then leaps away. The horse falls down, and Jillian uses his shield to attenuate his landing. Suddenly, Viego is at his neck, holding a knife. Unfortunately for him, Jillian is quicker and uses his axe to catch his attack. He uses his shield to hit Viego and says that he is not the captain of the Ratatosk Mercenaries. Hearing this, Viego is not sure what to reply. He is thrown back a couple of meters and slides on the ground, trying to stop. As he does, he asks Jillian if he claims not to be the captain. He starts shouting that this is enough of this nonsense and asks who it is if not him. Jillian charges his aura and says that he has discarded his past. From now on, he is nothing but Lord Ghislaine's subordinate. Hearing this, Viego gets annoyed. He leaps towards Jillian, this time holding a sword, and says that he will kill him at all costs. In the dead of night, the fight continues. Viego continuously attacks Jillian, and Jillian doesn't miss a bit in countering him. With fierce force, Viego stabs his shield, as if he is trying to break through it. Viego shouts at Jillian, telling him that the mercenary company was disbanded after he left. Thanks to him, he lost his purpose and ended up living a disgraceful life just to make a living. Jillian doesn't make any reply. He tries to hit Viego with his shield, creating some distance, and immediately after he swings his sword at him, but Viego dodges. After this, Viego tries to kick Jillian. Unfortunately for him, Jillian easily blocks his attack. Even so, it looks like Viego's kick broke down his shield. Viego starts speaking again, telling Jillian that he was prepared to sacrifice his entire life to make the Ratatosk mercenaries the best in history. He looks Jillian in the eyes and tells him that he threw away everything, only to end up as a mere pawn for a spoiled noble. For this, Viego cannot forgive Jillian. Viego then throws 3 knives towards Jillian, the same he used to kill his horse. Jillian swings his axe and deflects all of them. Viego then leaps towards Jillian, trying to stab him right in the face. Jillian, however, moves, and Viego is left to plunge his knife into the ground. He regains his composure and manages to block Jillian's next attack. Looking at Jillian, Viego can only have fury in his heart. No matter how strong he may be, he hasn't been the captain in a few years. While Jillian was wasting his time trying to cure his daughter, Viego was putting himself through countless battles to get stronger. Viego thinks that Jillian is no longer a match for him. As he leaps towards the ground, he picks up the 3 knives. Once again, he throws them towards Jillian. This time, Jillian raises his hand and blocks them with the plate of his shoulder. When he does this, Viego uses the time to once again get close to him, which Jillian notices. He swings at Viego, but he dodges. He prepares to land the final strike on Jillian as he screams that it's over for him. Only something unexpected happens. Jillian riles up his hand and grabs the knife with his bare hands. Holding his knife, Jillian asks Viego if this is the reason for his vengeance. Seeing this, Viego cannot believe what Jillian has done, surrounding his hand with mana in order to grab the dagger, and wonders if Jillian was not showing his true power until now. Then, Jillian smacks Viego in the face with the back of his axe. His hit is so powerful he throws Viego on the ground meters away, hitting a tree trunk. Jillian approaches Viego, saying that he doesn't understand. He walks towards Viego still holding his dagger, saying that if revenge was what he wanted, he had plenty of chances. He looks him dead in the eye and asks why he didn't come for him earlier. Viego laughs, telling Jillian that he knows one thing but not the other. Viego tells Jillian that he has already visited where he used to stay, but there was no such captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. All that was left was a feeble old man who's not even worth killing. Viego smirks and asks where did the Jillian who he used to look up to disappear off to. Jillian looks at Viego and gets annoyed. He throws the dagger on the ground and tells Viego to raise his weapon. Jillian takes out his own sword and says that he too is a body bound to another's will, but at least for this very moment, things are different. He raises his sword high and says that he will show his former comrade his highest level of respect. He will fight as he used to, as the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. Hearing this, Viego agrees. He takes the dagger and rushes towards Jillian, saying that now they are talking. He tries to attack Jillian, but he blocks the hit using his sword. Viego laughs and shouts that this is exactly what he wished for. A fierce battle commences, with fast consecutive hits from both of them. Jillian tries to swing his sword, but once again Viego gets down low. From his position, Viego tries to kick Jillian, but he moves back. He then tries to stab him, but Jillian blocks it. Jillian then uses his axe to pin Viego to the ground. With his next attack, Jillian plunges his sword in Viego's back. After this, the sharp pain makes Viego cough out blood. The battle goes on, and once again Viego tries to swing at Jillian, but he dodges. Then Jillian prepares to hit Viego with his axe. Seeing that Viego is completely open, and that there is no way he can parry his attack, Jillian tells Viego that he will remember him, calling him by his former title, 5th Unit Commander of the Ratatosk Mercenaries. He looks him in the eyes and states his full name, Viego Valanos. Hearing this, Viego smiles. These were his last moments alive, as Viego is left in a puddle of blood on the ground, with his knife clean, as he didn't manage to hit Jillian even once. Jillian then takes his dagger. He looks down at his fallen opponent and former comrade. From behind, Ghislain tells him that he did a good job. Looking around, Ghislain thinks that selling these guys' loot could bring in quite a bit of money, asking Jillian if he does not agree. However, Jillian only bows his head and apologizes, saying that he has caused Ghislain more delay than it was necessary, and Ghislain tells him that he shouldn't worry about it. Looking at him, Ghislain thinks that Jillian is far more exceptional than expected. When he first left home to start mercenary work, the stories about Jillian from his seniors helped lay the foundation for him to become the mercenary king. Moving quickly was the right choice, and thanks to that, he gained a reliable comrade. Ghislain then looks at Jillian and asks him if he remembers who he was. Jillian takes out the dagger and says that he does. Jillian looks up to the sky and says that he was his old comrade. Ghislain then looks up and thinks about Jillian's words, old comrade. He then wonders what his old comrades are doing now, sure that they're living a life of their own since this is before they've even met him. Ghislain then smiles and thinks that he will have to scout them away someday. Ghislain then asks if they should follow Belinda's suggestion and gather anything valuable from these guys, and Belinda tells Jillian to take the lead and collect everything from them. Jillian, annoyed, tells Belinda that he is not in any way her subordinate. 2 days later, it seems like they are back into Perdium territory. Belinda is happy to see familiar planes, and Jillian asks if this is Perdium. Ghislain, looking over the carriage, says that this is it indeed. Looking towards the estate, Ghislaine thinks that it feels good to have a home to return to, and thinks that when he first ran away from home, he thought he would be able to come back at any time. Jillian looks over, but doesn't say anything. Ghislaine asks Jillian what he thinks of the lands, and he regains his thoughts, and says that it looks great. Ghislaine then says that it is shitty, and Jillian starts sweating, unsure what to reply. Ghislaine then starts saying that all the houses are outdated and renovations are out of the question. He then points out the fields, saying that they are completely uncultivated, and that all the farmers have been conscripted into the military, leaving the land forcibly fallow. Jillian then starts speaking, saying that he has heard Perdium is at war because of the northern barbarians, but after seeing it firsthand, the situation looks worse than he had expected, and Belinda thinks that he wasn't someone who knew this land's situation well before. Ghislaine then says something that shocks both Belinda and Jillian, saying that he will resolve all those problems, and tells Jillian that this is why he needs his strength. Ghislaine says that it'll be a long battle to eliminate everything connected to Duke Delphine, and to protect what was taken for granted. He will revive this land no matter what. Then they approach the castle's entrance. It looks like Belinda has noticed something unusual, which caught Ghislaine's attention as well. Ghislaine himself seems to be shocked by what he sees. It looks like Ghislaine's father is waiting for him just outside the estate's entrance. Thank you for watching. See you next time.